Very good? Yeah. I was just with the factor.
Yeah, I asked Adrian but where does it fit in? Under which agenda? But the resolution? So this is part of the resolution.
Go ahead, Adrian. I call this meeting to order. The time is 5:34. Date is March 4th, and this is a special board meeting, which is a board workshop. Adrian, can you come forward?
Ms. Barnes?
Present.
Ms. Borrego?
Ms. Borrego texted me today, and she is taking care of her mother who just came out of the hospital.
Ms. Maldonado?
Present.
Mr. Martinez?
Present.
Ms. Ortega?
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Present.
Ms. Zuniga?
Here.
Item number 2, open forum. Any person wishing to address the board during the period reserved for public comment at a board meeting must say not to be heard in accordance with district policy BED local. Each participant will be limited to 3 minutes to make comments to the board. The board is not permitted to discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda for tonight's meeting. For further information on these policies, contact the superintendent's administrative assistant. And Mr. President, we do not have any community members signed up for tonight.
Okay, that will take us to the next item.
Item number 3, board workshop. Item 3A, TASB study presentation. Presenters, Ms. Martha Carrasco and Karen Dooley.
Good evening, Board President, Trustees, Dr. Galavis. This evening I'd like to present to you Ms. Karen Dooley. She's visiting us from Austin, and she is with TASB. We have contracted with TASB, I believe sometime in November. We've been working together. At the request of the board was to have a limited scope review of our staffing at central office and some of the other non-instructional areas. And so Mr. Lee has completed her review, and she's here this evening to present to you her findings.
Hello, yeah, okay. Good evening, board members and Dr. Galvez. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all in person and actually meet you in person. So I'm with TASB HR Services, as stated, and I conducted a limited staffing review for CISD back in the fall and continue to add additional information to it at the board's request. So I hope you received the information that you requested and that it was beneficial to you as you're moving forward with your budget process. So the staffing review that I conducted began with data collection, where I sent out questionnaires and did some virtual interviews with staff, with leaders within your district. As was mentioned, with it being limited, it was curriculum and instruction, business and finance, HR, operations, which included supervisors and above in the operations area, and then also communications, technology, and safety and security. And the other section that was part of that was non-campus clerical. They were also reviewed through this process. And so collected questionnaires, got the data from the school district, and then went through the analysis process once I received back the questionnaires and completed interviews and looked at comparisons, and then from there built some models for improvement for the district. And so benchmarking, why do we benchmark? Benchmarking gives you a good look at yourself, and then also you can look at it in comparison to other districts to see what they're accomplishing with their staff in their district. I will say with the benchmarking, most of it was peer comparisons, and I'll talk here in just a few minutes about the statewide peers and the local peers that I used in the comparisons. But for the non-campus clerical, that was actually a benchmark in the sense that it was 3 staff per 1,000 students that you have. And so that's the benchmark that I used for that comparison, where the rest of it was comparisons with the different peer district analysis, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. So district details, if you can see from the chart in the district details, this is the 6-year historical comparison. Typically, we do the 5-year comparison, which was from 1920 to 23-24. Since we had already had the PEAM submission taken place in October, I was able to do 6 years. So I added this school year, the 24-25 school year, to that comparison. Also, there's an additional column at the very end that shows the information of comparing over the 6-year period how many more staff or less staff in each one of those PEAMS categories that was requested. That one was requested by the district when I first came out to do the first workshop with district staff on the findings. And so you can see that as to what it looks like from 1920 to 24-25. I will say you also have to consider during that time frame things that happened in your district. So not just simply that you look exactly the same as you looked in 1920 to 24-25, but you have to go back and look at, did you add any programs? Did you do any new programs? For instance, I think the Montessori program came about during that time frame. And so there's going to be some increases or maybe even decreases if you shifted a program and so forth. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at the data to ensure that you know that some of the district differences may be due just to your choices in programs that you're offering. The next chart is actually your state peer districts, and state peer districts are selected by looking at your enrollment range, and then my main focus there is the economically disadvantaged group of students to try to match up as closely as I can to what your district looks like. So trying to find a mirror image of your district the best that I can with enrollment and economically disadvantaged as looking at needs of students to make comparisons. And so when looking at your statewide peer districts, you can look at averages of different positions throughout the exhibits that were in the report, and then also looking at the final number, not only just of averages of staff, but looking at how many staff per 1,000 students. The next chart is local peers that were requested by the district, and these are representative of districts within your area. They are not going to be the same in enrollment range. They are more about proximity to your district. And so when I do the comparison with these districts, the focus there is how many per 1,000 students to make sure that I'm comparing apples to apples of the overall number within each one of the departments. You can't look at the average of number of HR specialists in El Paso ISD compared to Canutillo ISD and expect that to be a good comparison. You have to look at how many HR staff per 1,000 students in your district compared to your local peers because of the enrollment range. The next chart is a King's category comparison. I think this one, I'm trying to remember because I did several, special charts and everything that were requested. And I think this one came as a result of a board member requesting this. But this was taken the different King's categories when we did the analysis earlier on the historical review. And it's looking at where you are as far as staff per 1,000 students, for teachers, for professional support, for campus administration, for district administration, educational aides, your auxiliary staffing, and the total staff. Remember too that your auxiliary staffing is going to include not only your child nutrition workers, maintenance, custodial, and transportation, but it also has all of your campus clerical and non-campus clerical staff included in that number. So you can see how you compare to, there's your number per 1,000 students for each of those positions, the state average, the peer district, the state peer district average, and the local peer district average on that chart. Moving on. This is just the budget distribution. This was taken by requesting the information from the district for this year's PEMS data and looking at what the salaries were. If you can remember, and I'm sure you're going to hear this again in just a few minutes in the budget section, but if your salaries are representative of about 85% of your budget, and then of that 85%, you can see what each one of those categories that I just talked about, how they're represented within that. On this, teachers were 53%, and then you can see on through there, I can see some numbers, but colors and all of that, but anyway, you've got the information in your PowerPoint to see how the budget distribution is for that 85% of the budget. So, summary of findings and options. Going through this, we have financial services, and I would have brought my computer up here, I apologize. Let me turn this way so I can see. I do apologize. Just want to make sure I can see it. So for financial services, and these are only the different areas that are actually with recommendations represented. I do apologize for that. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. So here we go. This is much better. Getting a crick in my neck. I'm wake up in the morning. But for financial services, it was considered the absorption of up to 2 positions through attrition to reduce variances with the peer comparison data. The financial services department was staffed with 12.5 positions compared to the state peer district average of 7.8. This equates to 2.2 staff per 1,000 students compared to 1.3 for the state peer district average. And the local peer district average was 0.8 staff per 1,000 students. For enrollment range of 5,000 to 8,000 students, which is all of the districts that participated in the CISD HR Services Salary Survey, in the enrollment range of 5,000 to 8,000 students, the ratio was 1 staff per 1,000 students. The absorption could be achieved in part through the adjustment of non-campus clerical support, which you're going to see that recommendation here in just a few minutes. And then you can use the variance to determine areas available for adjustments. Understand that there are positions that you may have in your district that maybe others don't have. I'll say like travel clerk, that's not a very, we don't see that often in other locations of the state, but for locally in y'all's area, we do see that. And it's probably due to where you are located in the state and kids having to travel to different places around the state, or even adults and district employees traveling, versus in Central Texas, it's easier to get to all the different locations than it is from out here in the far west part of our state. And so just once again, variances may be justified, and it's working with staff to understand why you have what you have, and when you find something that is different, why is it different? And it may be justifiable and it may not. Sometimes justification doesn't keep positions though, if you're in a budget shortfall, so you've got to remember that too. For communications, you could consider the absorption of one communication position through attrition to reduce variance with the peer comparison districts. The communication department is staffed with 4.5 positions compared to the state peer district average of 2.4. This equates to 0.8 per 1,000 students compared to 0.4 for the state peer district average. The local peer district average is 0.3 staff per 1,000 students. Once again, use the variances to determine areas for adjustment. I know I've been here in Canantillo ISD, I know there's been a big focus on marketing within y'all's district to attract students, to recruit. Therefore, you may have some positions that were put in place directly for that purpose. So can you or can you not continue to afford that staffing level? The next one is technology. Consider the absorption of up to 4 technology positions through attrition to reduce variances with peer comparison data. The technology department was staffed with 16 positions compared to 11.6 for the state peer district average. This was 2.6 positions per 1,000 students compared to 2 for the state peer district average. The local average was 0.9 staff per 1,000 students. For enrollment range of 5,000 to 8,000 students, it was 1.8 staff per 1,000 students. This adjustment would reduce the variance between the state and local peer districts and districts in the enrollment range of 5,000 to 8,000 students. I will say, just talking to individuals and hearing, about technology within Canantillo ISD, I know that whenever COVID occurred and you flipped to remote learning and so forth, y'all did it very easily because you were already poised for that type of arrangement, where many districts scrambled at that time. So just kudos to the district for being able to do that, and it was because of what you had in place in technology. The next one is your non-campus clerical support. This one is to consider the absorption of 8 non-campus clerical positions. These are not going to be 8 in addition to what I've already talked about, so some of those are going to be offset with this number. And so the benchmark is 3 positions per 1,000 students, as I mentioned earlier. The district does employ 28.5 positions compared to the benchmark of 17. Absorbing support staff from the financial services department, which was approximately 2 positions, communications, 1 position, and technology, 1 position, would help achieve this recommendation. So additional evaluation of departments represented in the list that are provided on non-campus clerical can help identify additional positions, and I know that staff have been working on doing that. And so when you look at cost or savings, they're all savings here. With the financial services department was approximately $90,000. The communications department approximately $180,000. That is not, something's not right there. I apologize. Yeah, something's not quite right there on that one. That needed to be corrected. It should have been, I think it was like 60,000 maybe, or 40,000. So I apologize for that. Or 45,000, I think is what it actually was. Technology was the 4 positions at 40. I think those 2 should be flip-flop. And then 2 non-campus clerical at 160,000 for a total of 470,000. Looking ahead, these are recommendations only. Decisions have to be made by the leaders and the board together whenever you're working through your budget process. Consider your goals. What are you trying to accomplish with your budget process this year? I know y'all do have a budget shortfall and y'all are working to minimize that negative budget that you have. And so just using this as part of that and how you can accomplish the goal that you actually have. You know, we say gradual implementation. Sometimes districts are at a certain point in their budget that they can't do gradual. And if the state doesn't help us out, then it's harder to do this gradually. And so you may have to do some adjustments sooner than later. And then, you know, using staffing plans to have a rhyme or reason to why you staff, how you staff. Also part of that is reviewing your priorities. And if you had something that was a priority in the past and you moved beyond that priority and went to a different one, make sure that you made those adjustments in the staffing and didn't leave your first priority in place if you moved on to another one. Because unfortunately, we know you don't have unlimited funds. So you have to offset those priorities from one year to the next. Okay. Any questions for
Another
me?
question, Ms. Karen.
Yes.
On the slide where you said total cost savings, you have 2 non-campus clerical at $160,000.
Yeah, that was that's where I was saying that there, I think you have to flip-flop.
Well, I thought the communications one had 180.
Oh,
For
yeah,
technology.
yeah. I'll have to check, well, I mean, for some reason, I don't know how those numbers got
I think the technology and communications are flipped.
flipped.
But the
And then non-campus clerical shouldn't be at 160,000. That would have been for 8 positions. It should have been 40,000 right there. So, sorry about that. I made adjustments, then went back to the report, made adjustments, and that's just my error, so I apologize for that. That should have been, I think that should have been 40. I think the technology was 180, and I think the communications was 40. And so, actually, 120, it should be more like 350, not 470 for that bottom line. So, sorry we did not catch that.
Can you clarify those numbers?
You
have it correct.
Oh, it's correct in there,
And we-
okay, got it.
Ms. Ortega?
correct.
Yeah.
In the report,
Let's go with Ms. Ariel first, if she was done, and then I believe, Ms. Maldonado was next, followed by Ms. Barnes. So if you wanna,
You're good, I'm good.
go ahead, Ms. Maldonado.
I just needed to clarify the campus. You said
Yes, ma'am.
40.
yeah, do you mind looking?
Well, page
She's got the report, let me
48.
see. I probably have the report in
Right,
here.
numbers are there.
I do apologize about that. On page 48, the number, the correct numbers.
Oh, can I say the numbers? Sure.
Yes, there they are.
2 financial service support staff at $45,000 each, so that's $90,000. Then we have absorption of 4 technology support staff, 4 at $45,000 each, 180. And then absorption of 1 communication support position at $40,000, and absorption of 4 non-campus clerical positions at $40,000 each, at so $160,000.
So the
Thank you.
communications is
So it's still 460.
It's
4
non-campus clerical.
4 non-campus clerical positions, yes, at $40,000 each.
Thank you.
Yes.
And the total is 470.
Correct.
Any other questions this morning?
But it's 4 non, yes.
Ms. Barnes
That was the same question.
and Ms. Ortega, did you have any questions? I do have a question, or go ahead, Ms. Martinez.
Ma'am, thank you for your presentation. We really appreciate it. One of the questions that I have is, when you did your study and you talked to all of our staff, did you identify the number of new programs and the number of new positions that were established since 2019 to now?
Not specifically by programs, if you know what I mean. I mean, just talking with them, there was different things like the Montessori program. There was, for instance, an accounting position due to bond projects that are going on and things like that, but they were more general. It wasn't specific where I had a list of them, if that makes sense. I'm just saying that there's things that may be different. I mean, it's impossible to have 12 peer districts that are doing exactly the same thing that you're doing, if that makes sense, and so you just have to keep that in mind when you're looking at the nexus.
Can I say something here? If we go back to the chart where you've got comparisons from 2019, 2020 to current. And I think the number is, Karen, the number there is 81.
It was, so you're looking at on page, well, it's the 6-year historical comparison.
That's correct.
And you're gonna see that for total staff, it was 81.37, more that you have right now than you had in the 1920 school year for the total staff.
And I do understand that you came about, what I'm asking is very specific.
Mhm.
I know in 2019 we had less programs, and I know every year we get presented, or the school district get presented with new programs. So I just want to know the difference, the number of programs and the number of new positions that we have accumulated since then.
Right, I mean, the HR staff, I think, can report, I mean, you can see where the changes from 1920 to 24, 25 in that 6-year historical chart. So you can see where there's more staff. Now, whether it's directly program related or not, will have to be something you would have to look at, because I did not, here again, I didn't do campus specific analysis. It was just on those departments that I talked about. And I just know that some of them were impacted by some of the different program offerings that you
And
have.
Ms. Carrasco, this is to you. Do you know how many new programs we have established since 2019?
That would be something that I would have to work in collaboration with curriculum and some of the other departments to look at, what programs they have now as compared to 2019, 2020.
So, for example, Mr. Trustee Martinez, the police department, it's an unfunded mandate. I mean, we get funded, but it's small, about over $1 million, 1.3 to be exact. We also have tutoring, that requires tutoring. We also have the ACE program. All of this it's all the budgets. It's not just 199, which affects the deficit. How many people are in the ACE program right now that we?
So there's 17, but a total of 73 total employees. Part-time.
Half in the ACE program.
And it's grant funded though.
It's grant funded, but they're included in this number.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to caution the board that we're looking at the deficit. Really need to look at 199, which is the general fund. The special funds like title, ACE program grant funded. Our social workers are funded by a grant.
Mr. Superintendent, I do understand that, but I think we're asking and we're looking at this report, and we don't have the information ready to present. At least give us some numbers. Very clearly mention that the police department, we understand that. I support you 100% in the police department, but we need to have those numbers available to present. Just give us an idea of what we're looking at. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Go ahead. Yes.
on the ACE program, it's completely 100% grant funded. So the employees that are, that this comparison reflects those 73 employees, right? But they are grant funded, whether they be part-timers or the coordinators, correct?
Yes, ma'am, but of those 73, some are existing employees. So if I have after-school tutoring, some of those might be existing teachers. But additional, there's 17 additional employees.
For the ACE program.
Yes, ma'am.
But again, whether they be,
It's all grant.
full-time employees that are taking the after-school extra type thing,
So,
the part of the ACE program is not funded by the district, but rather by the grant. Thank you.
In regards to my concern here, in 2019, 2020, we were at 6,256 students, correct?
That's
And currently we're at 5,735 students. How far back do we go to where we were at 5,735 students?
The best I could come up with was that chart that I gave you that showed back to 11-12 school year. And it was still a couple of hundred difference.
It was 10, right?
But it was the 2011-2012 school year, I think it was. And so that should have been given to you as extra in the extra analysis part that I think is included.
We don't have that.
Oh, you don't have, okay,
It
okay.
was provided,
In the,
In the main package.
it was provided to, Adrian. I'm not sure.
Should be at the back of the report. The additional report.
is it the one that has all the exhibits?
It's, yes, it's in here at the very back.
It looks like this.
And it was it's on page 50. If you look on page 50, it's historical comparison with alignment to the 2011-2012 school year with 24-25. So you can see where you were over that. And like I said, that's the closest that I could get to the student enrollment, and it was off a couple of hundred students.
That was 5,900, right?
Yes,
59.95.
59.95 compared to 57.35.
And I guess my biggest concern, I know administration is gonna go back and look and evaluate and see, and I guess Dr. Galaviz could talk a little bit, that we're gonna have the budget presentation next, but in regards to, my concern is campus should always come first, the teacher that's in the classroom, then the campus,
Right.
then central office, and so, I know there's gonna be some tough decisions that are gonna have to be made, bless you. But another concern is too unintended consequences. I know in the past, especially the last go around, we've eliminated some, and that might have had some unintended consequences, but I'll address that in the budget. But I appreciate the study, and I appreciate, the board allowing us to go ahead and get this study, because I think it gives us a better picture of how we could really address, especially, central office staffing. And, we're not extremely, overstaffed, but there are areas where we could, really improve. And so thank you, I think it gives us a look from the outside. And so I believe Ms. Woods had some questions.
So when we met with you, I had asked for an additional comparison. I believe it was for the non-clerical
Yes,
staff compared to other districts our size,
I
correct?
think it was a page 51. If you'll turn to that page, it was the state and state peer district auxiliary category comparison.
Is it in the first or the second? Second? Sorry, mine don't have pages on them.
It's in the book, in your book, in your board book itself, I think page 51.
The pages are on the board.
You have,
You have a chart that says state and state peer district
Auxiliary category
and
comparison.
state and state peer district non-campus clerical.
Okay, I'll
Page 51.
Yeah, so I pulled out the district campus clerical and the non-campus clerical out of the chart that's right up above there for you. So you've got the comparison seen 3 different ways.
Perfect. And
Okay.
my second question, so looking at the comparison in overall personnel, it looks to me like Dayton ISD would probably be the closest in enrollment and economically disadvantaged. So we have 959 total personnel, and they're at 801. I would, I guess, be interested to see where that huge difference is.
Right.
But then also, like Trustee Rodriguez was saying, President Rodriguez was saying, we want to make sure we don't have unintended consequences of that. So,
Absolutely.
how are they scoring? How are they doing?
Right.
Not just where their numbers are. So,
Well,
that might be something we should look into.
Definitely, and you can take and do a side-by-side of their staffing to your staffing, just like I did on that page 50 where I did your specific auxiliary. You can actually go look at all those categories for just that district if you think that compares the best.
Okay.
Now, they're a Southeast Texas
Right.
town on Highway 90 between Houston and Beaumont. I graduated from high school at Dayton High School.
Oh, did you?
So, yes. So, speaking of Dayton High School, but also I've conducted a staffing review for them a couple of years ago, and they are pretty lean. I'll just say they just are. They don't have a lot of
Extra.
staff in a bunch of areas.
Okay.
I mean, fortunately, unfortunately, so yeah, I think it would be great to look at their scoring, look at how their campuses are performing, how they performed as a district, and see if you can, you know, kind of drill down as to what is specifically different.
Perfect, thank you, I appreciate it.
And since you addressed it again, I guess I would go to that. We used to have a bilingual ed director, and when that position, through attrition, we were able to save money.
Right.
And I think there was an unintended consequence because then we lost students and then lost money. So, I guess if there's no other questions, then we would go to the budget workshop. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Board.
Close my computer down, so thank you so much.
That will take us to the next item.
Item 3B, budget workshop presentation.
Oh, you know, I don't know. I was just gonna say, I wish we would have looked at gradual and hopefully attrition if we would have done this earlier versus, and hopefully we can get rid of attrition on some of these positions. Go ahead.
I would like Ms. Carrasco to have a report of the programs that have been added and how many staff members specifically are within each program, please.
Since when?
I'm gonna say since, what was it,
2019.
2019 to the present day.
Guess I'm gonna need a little more clarification on that, because that was here. 2019, that was a COVID year. So, I don't know. Someone help me out on how to, this Karen is really, and how to process what they want. Because it was a COVID year, so, to look at the programs we had today.
Now, let me clarify. I'm gonna go after COVID, which was what, 2021, 22?
2019, 2020.
Yeah,
After COVID? After 2019.
We were still out of school during that year.
But I'm not wanting all the programs, Dr. Galaviz, I'm wanting the additional programs that were added. Like, what do we have right now? What programs do we have right now? Pre-K, 3, Montessori, examples. How many staff members do we have in those programs? Okay. So any additional programs that were added, and I'm going to say 2022 to the present day. Just new programs and how many staff members in each program specifically.
Does that include grants?
Yes, because if it's grant funded, we need to consider that.
But we can specify if it's grant funded.
Yes.
Just for the, would you consider,
Sorry, Ms. Maldonado, please. I'll still answer to Ms. Buddy.
COVID, please. I'll go now and then.
Chair, can I have the floor? Ms. Maldonado, can we amend that to go 1 year further, 2018? My concern is, like Dr. Galaviz mentioned, those years were there. I know we increased some of our staff, some of our tutoring, some of our teachers. I think we had some programs also, but we received some grants from the state.
We had ESSER funding and we
Right.
did increase quite a bit our staff, but that ESSER funding now is gone.
That's correct.
So
That's correct. So would it be possible to go 1 year, let's say 2018, prior to 2019, so that we can identify as we move forward, 2019, 2020, 21, up to now, to get an understanding of what has happened, how many positions we have increased, programs, the support staff, and the teachers. At the fund, yes, definitely. Profile.
So let me ask you this, Ms. Carrasco, were any programs cut after we no longer received ESSER funds? Did we eliminate some programs?
we eliminated staff.
Staff, but not the programs.
Not necessarily that I can think of off the top of my head right now, no.
Okay, so Mr. Martinez, you're wanting to go 2018 to present day of new programs that were added? And the staff specifically,
Yes.
and specifically stating that they're grant funded?
That's correct, yes, ma'am.
What about if we had decreased programs?
Well, I think that should be also part of the report. If you decrease programs and decrease staff, I mean, it's something to be identified. Yes.
Yes, because if we don't have those programs anymore,
No, I'm just trying to process.
what I wanna do is I wanna see what we have right now, what programs we have, how many staff members do we have in those programs, whether they're grant funded or not. And I'm gonna compare it. I'm still going with 2022, which is after COVID. That's what I would like. After COVID, tell me what programs there were, which programs were grant funded, how many staff members were in each program,
Just increase.
okay? And the funding source, where, if it was a grant funded, where did it come from, right?
There increased position. Or increase.
Okay. 2022, what programs did we have? How many staff members did we have? How were they funded? Were they grant funded or district, okay? Compare that to now. What programs do we have right now?
Programs or new programs?
New programs. New programs added.
But you want every year? Or
Mr.
just
President?
that?
I mean, just, Ms. Maldonado, from my understanding, every new program, and you said the year, has been increased from that date, right?
For 2022, what new programs have been added? What new staff members have been added to those programs? And where did the funding source?
Okay.
So now,
Do we get that? Is everybody okay? with
2022.
I wanna agree with, trustees, Martinez. I think we should go back to 2018. I wanna know what was going on before COVID and how things changed with COVID and then where we are at now.
that? So if that's the case, what is?
I don't necessarily know if programs changed, but I do think it's important to look at staffing and I think that's really where the confusion is coming from, because we hired additional staffing through COVID to cover everything that was going on through ESSER funds and elsewhere. But then when we came back, we no longer were receiving those funds. It wasn't an additional program, but there was additional staffing. So that's why I think it's important to go back to before COVID and at least talk about, yes, the programs. That plus I think what did we have staffing wise that we brought on. So maybe it might need to be two separate, both but two separate.
You could do staffing according to the categories.
I'll do the staffing for the
Yeah,
historical.
for the categories.
18 to
And then
now,
we
20,
can
I mean
do-
19 to now, 20 to now, 21 to now, all the way across. And I guess, okay, I'll do that chart.
I believe,
The programs.
That's, so my understanding is she'll be able to go through that, through the historical data, provide that.
Correct.
Staffing, my understanding then administration will come back with programs.
Both added and deleted programs. And funding source. And also we're gonna need funding source for the staff as well, because of course we had funding for ESSER during those certain years, but we don't have that now. So that she'll probably have to work with essentially.
So just 2018, 2019, one, and then 22, 23, or 21,
22, 22.
So just those 2 years.
No, it goes back.
I do every year.
Yeah.
From then on. Because we also made cuts last year.
No, I think with the programs. Alright, I'm just trying to wrap my head every year. Alright,
Okay,
may I have,
so we have everything coming back from 2018 and 2019.
well, 1920. No, just do it, since our veteran service says 1920.
18, 19, right?
I actually would like to go back to where we were at the student 88. That's a different story. It's too much. I think we need to move forward and figure out how we can really address the budget, and hopefully that the state will fund their fair share. So I think they've got a good grasp of it, and we'll go from there. And
If I may, I do have one additional thing. So now that I finally found the the paper, I'm sorry. My numbers are totally different because I printed them than the board book. So, if we look at the state and state peer district auxiliary category comparison, it really has a good breakdown. Instead of just lumping those all together and saying we have this many more, but this many more in which category. So, for example, like, let me just pull one, campus office clerical, we average 15, whereas the state is only at 6. So I feel like we need to look at those individual categories for the auxiliary and see, are those grant positions or are they not? And then determine from there if there's something that we can cut there that needs to be cut.
I mean, for me, I think it's just, if the board wants to look at that data, I think I'm okay with requesting it, but it's not the board that needs to say what positions or what needs to be, you know, especially when it comes to grant funding or whatever it is. I think what we need to do as a board is rely on administration to, one, balance a budget, and two, be able to look at what positions they feel need to address without any unintended consequences.
That will come before the board still.
Correct. Okay, that will take us to budget.
Hello, President Rodriguez, members of the board, Dr. Galaviz, staff related director of communications for the school district. We're going to do a multi-person approach to the presentation. You know, we wanted to start off the presentation with this table, which shows the history of our budget over 2018. It is
No, that's different. You don't show that one.
Yeah.
Show the newest one.
Was it not uploaded?
No.
Can you, Adrian, can you upload the newest one? So that way the community would have the newest one as well.
We're not allowed to make changes to board book once it's been posted.
Okay.
So show the one on the shared drive.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Can you add? Not necessarily take away. I believe you can.
Mr. Ranko saying yes, we would have to find out how to upload it then. Since the meeting
If it doesn't go into board book, just post it on the website as an attachment.
Well, what we're trying to do, I think what happens probably because of the hours, the notice 72, they probably won't let you take. So
Yeah.
you could have the.
Again, it doesn't matter. You're just adding a document to the district's website to show what you're seeing. You can do that. Whether it's in board book or not is irrelevant.
Well, I'm asking for it to be in board book.
It won't go into board book.
It's already posted.
Because it's already posted and they'll let you change it.
It might have let you allow it, to add it.
As far as I know, no.
Well, that's what I'm asking for clarification.
No.
You don't work for board book.
No.
Let's ask board book.
If the meeting
Go
becomes
ahead.
locked once we post, and we're not allowed to change it once it's officially posted.
So we can add it to the website.
Sure.
Thank you.
This is a slide that shows our history of budgeting back to 2018. It shows balanced budgets every year, and it goes even further back. We have a financial team, Ms. Police right here to verify that's been winning awards for fiscal management, including this year as well. We wanted to make sure the community understands that this is an issue that an issue of funding from the state and not an issue of mismanagement. And I know there's that narrative out there that this is a mismanagement issue. We wanted to show the history, making sure that people understand that we do have a history of proper management, of good stewardship of taxpayers' money, and showing us this. We did hit a deficit last year, and that's back when school districts started to feel the pain from the lack of proper funding from the state. And that's where not only DO is today, but several other school districts. In fact, we are facing unprecedented inflation, 22%, but yet our funding formula has not increased since 2019.
I think also on this board, we wanted to show and our community that, again, for the last 10 years, we had 0 findings in our audit, multiple financial integrity management reports. This is really when we started putting money back in fund balance since I got here, and that's why we received a AAA rating to go for our bond, to get a good rate. So again, it's just really to show you and show the rest that we have been good stewards with the money, and we have been chasing inflation. So since 2018.
And as a matter of fact, if you go to the next slide, we've been talking about this for several years now, predicting that we would be here. Dr. Galaviz, has mentioned this in his presentations as well on the bond elections that failed, and where it placed us in telling the community that we would be in this position. 3 years ago, when we went out for a bond election, we told the community that we were looking at fiscal problems for the district if we didn't act quickly, and that's where we are today.
Again, it's we told you so. We were lying that fiscal angst or trouble if we did not pass that bond. We're losing kids. We're losing kids by abundant living. Losing kids going to our sister district down the road on Westler, Northwestern, and Upper Valley. And now with Da Vinci and Charter School, Da Vinci has a CTE program in our neighborhood on Borderland. So again, if we're not able to compete, with bond money the way we have to raise money or to fix our schools and build our schools, that we're going to be facing a deficit. So we're here today, and again, we're going to go forward.
And while we do have a light at the end of the tunnel with the passage of the bond, we know we have a plan for the next 3 years to open up schools in high need areas and high growth areas. So that gives us a little bit of hope. It's worth noting that if the bond in 2021 had passed, we would be opening schools this year. We also want to show that we are not alone. This is not an issue that's impacting San Diego alone. Unfortunately, our sister school districts here in Region 19 are facing similar problems. There's some news clippings here in this slide. This lead ISD has announced that they were going to take out a loan to make payroll. EPISD announced the closure of 8 schools in order to reduce their deficit and making sure that they streamline their budget. And just a couple of weeks ago, the Socorro School District announced a hard decision that because of their big deficit, they were going to look at eliminating up to 300 positions, including teachers as well. But it's not just an El Paso problem, this is a Texas problem. The issue of funding for school districts is not a problem that's impacting only our region. School districts in every corner of the state are feeling the pain. KDISD, Louisville ISD, Northwest ISD, these are districts in Houston, East Texas, North Texas, Central Texas. If you do a Google search, you'll quickly find that there's school districts in every region in the state that are facing financial crisis as well. So it's not just Cantillo, it's not just El Paso. That narrative of fiscal mismanagement is really an issue of state funding. And we can show the slide that currently our deficit, our inflation rate since 2019 has been set at 22%. The increase to basic allotment from the state to school districts has increased by 0% since 2019. If we adjust the 22% figure to the state allotment, that would give us an additional funding to the school district of $7.7 million. Our current deficit is set at $5.8 million. So as you can see, the inflation alone would cover our deficit if the state were to keep up with inflation in their funding formula. The state legislature is meeting right now. The governor and the majority in the legislature has set their priorities for educational funding and educational priorities. Many of them do impact our teachers, and we're very grateful. There's a Senate bill currently going through the process right now that will increase teacher pay. We're very happy for that. They deserve it. They work very hard. Unfortunately, it does nothing to really alleviate our financial issues. This goes directly to them. And again, we're very happy about that. We welcome that law. But we also need laws and funding that will impact our budget, that will impact our ability to address our deficit. The state is looking at property tax relief to further provide tax relief to homeowners. That's great, but again, that's nothing to our situation. They're looking at school vouchers and transferring funds from public education into private education. Again, instead of fixing our problems, taking money away from public education, and obviously making matters worse for our budget situation. So we're looking at legislature that is not really addressing our issues, and that's troublesome for us.
There's also what's on the table, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Rico, is $220 for the basic allotment to go up to $220 per kid. That about 1.2 million?
It was,
It's about 9%. It's 220, which is looking about a 9% increase over inflation.
about 1.25.
0.25.
For our current budget.
Yeah, to our M&O, our maintenance and operation. And another thing with that raise is they haven't mentioned, once you give the raise, is how are we going to sustain that next year? How are we going to keep up and make sure that, is it a one-time raise or is it a, we're going to have to put that into our formula? Because we don't know until what, April or May what's going to happen?
Yeah. Well,
Senate Bill 26, what it would do is actually provide sort of a basic allotment, just an allotment for teachers, and take away the 30% versus the House increasing the 40% requirement for a teacher raise. So it's a complicated, but I'll let you continue.
Right, that's the stance right now, but of course, that's only been addressed by the Senate. You'll need to go to the House.
Yeah, the Senate has no increase in the basic allotment, while the House does.
Right. Next slide.
Ms. Maldonado has it.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Jimenez, so Dr. Galaviz, you said that they're looking at raising the basic allotment per child to 220?
Under House Bill 2.
What is the current allotment right now?
6,100.
6,160.
6,160. And per student?
That's per student.
6,160 per student. That's what it stands at right now.
Okay. And they just want to increase it 220 from the House.
From the 6,000.
Yeah. So it'd be 6,380 for the basic allotment per student. Which I think goes about percent less. What was that calculation?
Okay. Thank you.
It was about 1.2, however, 30% of that, as the law stands right now, would have to clear compensation.
In the House bill, the current goes 30% to compensation. Under the House bill, it would increase to 40%.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is from my former boss, Dr. Michael Minosa, who's a conservative there in Socorro. And again, if you know him, he's like the Tony, Orlando, and Don. They're like, became a superintendent. He's just very, again, none of this is going to be fun. It's one of the most difficult things you'll ever have to do, but it's what you're elected to do. This decision is about taking control and then controlling your destiny. That was his advice to the Socorro School Board last Tuesday when he met. He's a very down to earth, and I'll tell you like it is on school. And again, our budget, we have to stop budgeting on hope. Senate Bill 1 or Senate Bill 2, we're going to have to take control of what we need to do. Kind of deal. Next slide. And again, it wasn't fun last year. It wasn't fun last year. This is what we did last year. We went from 9.5 $9.6 million deficit. We did budget, we did district administration. Before Miss Karen was here, we did 1.7. Locked the traditional schedule, saved us 1.1. Elementary staffing alignment, 6. Department operation budget cuts, 1.45. ADA adjustment from 94 to 95 saved us 800,000. And again, thank you to the voters who passed the bond. Now we moved our maintenance tax note, that's all paid off, now 1.20. So that helped us to the end of the year. The board adopted a $2.75 million deficit. Again, none of it was fun. Never going there, never going to schools, never HR sitting down with people saying, you know, the year saying you weren't going to have a job, and again, so again, our task, like I've always heard, is balance that budget.
If I may on that.
Go ahead.
Are we maintaining that 95% attendance rating? Or so we're good budget-wise with that? Okay.
Yes. And you get that.
I look
That
at it
every day. Every day.
So what's contributing to our deficit? So as we're losing enrollment, we are predicting for next year that we may be losing up to 120 additional students. Also, our healthcare costs for our insurance has increased significantly. We had to do an infusion into our self-funded insurance last year for $1 million. And of course, the stagnant state funding, which we just talked about, it hasn't increased since 2019, the basic allotment. And our district is changing, our student demographics are changing. The impact of this on our funding is quite significant. The changes in the economic situation that our students are in has improved, and that also affects funding as well.
I'm sorry, Ms. Puri, can you repeat what you're predicting as far as the enrollment loss?
For next year, I'm anticipating about 120 loss of students.
Why? For what reason?
So we just, for the enrollment, we just roll up our students. We keep our pre-K and our kinder kids steady, and then we just roll up the students to the next grade level. So the students coming in are less than the students going out.
For example, Ms. Ortega, Trustee Ortega at Reyes specifically has the highest with our 5th graders. A lot of them are not going to AMS, going up the road to Brown, Tornado, to those schools for convenience for the parents. Yeah, we're losing them to other ISDs. Oh no, we did, Zonda came in. Oh, we haven't done the survey to the parents. Zonda came in and they looked at all the leavers. And this is what we were seeing at predominantly Reyes, 5th grade.
Can you put documentation?
Yep, I can send it to you. Yep.
If I may, on that, for enrollment purposes, I think it would be good for us to reach out to our middle school parents, our 5th grade parents in particular, and get a gauge on what they're planning on doing. Maybe make it anonymous so that they don't feel like their kid's going to be pointed out, but if there's a way for us to do that, where we can get a gauge on whether or not it looks like they're staying, and go from there. And maybe some feedback in regard to if they are leaving, why.
Thanks for that, because we're actually, as part of our marketing efforts, doing some of that as well. And we're going further. We've identified students that have left the district within the last 2-3 years. We have their addresses, we know where they're at, so we're reaching out to them to do several things. One of them is to let them know the programs we have to offer since they've left, opportunities for them to expand their academic learning here in case it's something that will bring them to come back, but also to learn of their decision to leave the school district, so that we can gauge where we can improve or where we can really make some changes there.
Perfect, thank you. And then another thing to add to that, so yeah, absolutely.
When will we get that data?
So we are meeting with a company that's helping us do that on Friday, so we'll have an update for you
maybe in April,
Yeah, it's a pretty fast turnaround, yes.
March,
Like 25th?
25th.
I don't wanna say yes without, the information they have, but let me make sure.
We'll shoot for March. It's 50 parents, and then we can specifically target those parents.
Now, I'm sorry. I do have one more question in regard to the enrollment. So we're expecting a 120 student loss. That is just based off of the number of seniors graduating pre-K or the kinder, or pre-K kinder, what was it? Kinder. Okay. So my question or my concern with that is we had 169 student difference between last year and this year in regard to the enrollment that I'm seeing from the 6-year historical data. And then on top of that, or I don't know if this would also be included, so I pulled up, I also get a daily email for enrollment and online registration. So that 5,740 is basically what's on our 6-year data, but we're actually under that by 64 students. So are we budgeting correctly on how many students we're expecting to be here? Because that's a big difference.
I'm just rolling, like I said, I'm just rolling up our students. And so normally what we typically do is we adjust ADA.
Okay.
So I'll adjust it down to be more conservative.
Okay.
And then we kind of do like a true up snapshot day, which is in October.
Okay.
And that's becomes our official enrollment for that year.
That's what the 5,735.
Correct.
Correct.
And for the most part, our enrollment does grow throughout the year.
Okay.
After that.
But it's not this year, correct? Based off of the email that I received, we're down 664, I believe. So that's my only concern is we should be budgeting more conservative. So if just the 120 is from seniors to pre-K kinder coming in, are we actually budgeting on what the projected loss has been?
So we, for this year, from budget to what we had at Snapshot, I believe it was 23 students.
Okay.
Less.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Fully, I have a question. Yeah, sponsors mentioned that in 2024-2025 school year, we lost 164 students. 169. And this year, 2025, 24-25, 126. Is that correct?
I don't have the numbers, but whatever the numbers are on Snapshot.
So I'm just wondering, for next year, for the next school year, what is your prediction?
I don't have it in front of me, but it was, like I said, it was our current students, and rolling them up, and that's where I got 120 less students for next year. But at our next workshop, you'll see like all the more detail. This is kind of like a general overview, but you'll have the actual detail of student enrollment and projected enrollments and that type of information.
Because there's so many factors that if you multiply the number of students times the allotment, it doesn't justify our deficit. So many factors that come into play that, I've been multiplying since last week and it just doesn't make any sense. So I would feel better if I was able to identify where our funding is coming from, which is something that I requested last week. I don't see it in front of me. Just to I fully understand exactly what we're looking at. Okay, I mean, I multiply 126 or 169, still the numbers will not reflect the deficit that we're running. I know there's a 20%, 22%, 20% inflation, 22% inflation, still does not reflect that. So I'm just wondering, how do I arrive at those numbers?
Right. So there's actually a report that is called a Summary of Finance, and that gives you the breakdown of our state funding, and it gives you what our ADA is, what our different allotments are, our basic allotment. It'll also give you what is being contributed from local property taxes. So basically, every student in Texas is basically funded at the same rate. It just depends on who is paying for it. Is it the state or is it our local property taxes?
Could you lead me to that document,
Yes,
please?
sir. Yes.
I know I requested that and I still don't have it.
Ms. Maldonado and then Ms. Ortega.
So you said that all these students, have the same allotment, even if they're special ed, or?
No, so the basic allotment is what we receive for every regular education student. We receive half an ADA for our pre-K students, even though they're here all day. And then we have our special allotments for SEE, CTE, bilingual, special education. We also have allotments that may be based on our enrollment. Fire safety and security is based on our enrollment, GT. So there's different funding allotments that are based on our demographics of our students.
So let's say a GT student or a bilingual student, do we get the, what was it, 61, what is it right now, 6130 or 61 something?
It's in addition to that, 61.
Okay, it is in addition to that. Okay.
Yes, so the basic allotment is, straight across for every student.
Plus, if you're bilingual.
And
If
adjusted
you're
for
bilingual or GT or SPED, it's in addition.
Yeah.
Some has federal funding and then some has state and some has both. Go ahead, Ms. Ortega.
So the summary of finance, it's a yearly document or is that a monthly document?
It's an annual document that gets adjusted as data becomes available.
Is there any way that we as a board can receive something that comes out every month and then that way we can, foresee ahead of time or be aware of what's going on a monthly basis?
So I can provide a summary of finance. It is updated. I update our template. It's called the template, which is how we estimate our state funding. And I update it every 6 weeks period because that gives us our adjustments for our ADA. Of course, it's still dependent on the entire school year, but it kind of gives us where we're going, where we're headed. Certain information is not available until the school year ends. Our summer submission, which gives us how our students attended school, different elements, is not sent to the state until the summer. So we actually don't know our final numbers for this school year until October and November is when they do final settlement.
I would like to have access to that document every 6 weeks, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
So one of the other factors that's affecting our school district in particular is our property value growth. We have an accelerated growth rate above the state average. And so just to remind you all, we do get funding. Basically every student in Texas gets funded basically at the same amount. It just depends who's paying for it. So I know a lot of times they say, well, we're collecting a lot in property taxes, but that's really not generating revenue for us as a district. What it is doing is that the burden is being placed on local property taxes versus the state. The formula gives you a certain amount per student, and it just determines will it be paid for property taxes or will it be paid from the state. But the number in the end is the same. The only thing that will give us additional funding is additional students. So we're growing higher than the average of the state. And also for next year, for 2026, we are actually, the template reported a recapture payment, meaning that we are exceeding the amount of funding. That means that we are actually going to send back money to the state. If our growth rate stays at 12%, and depending of course on the formula that the state decides is going to be the growth formula for the state, we may have to actually start sending back funds to the state because we're becoming a property-rich district.
Our growth is mostly commercial, majority commercial,
Correct.
right?
One is commercial, the other is the fact that the development, the housing that's coming in is not as much students coming in. So we're actually growing faster. Our tax base is growing faster than our student average daily attendance. So we're actually getting hurt by the state, not just because of that. We're going to get hurt even more. But you're saying it's going to balance out, right? Is it still Chapter 41 or is it changed within? Is it Chapter 41's permission? What is that threshold and how can we protect it in regards to making sure that doesn't have impact and
Well, we have to protect ourselves from it because it's based on the values of the district. So, for example, our average growth rate was about 8 to 9%. This last year, it, went to 12%. I believe it was about 11.65%. That's a significant amount of growth. And it's mostly commercial, and also our homes are actually, the average has gone up significantly.
Can you get back to us on the threshold? And then how we could probably, I guess the only way we could address it is more student growth and different type of homes. Which we can, that the board can. Go ahead, Ms. Mulder.
So to understand it, okay, our growth, our home values of the homes that are coming in have risen, correct? A lot of it is commercial, okay? But those that are family residents, their homes are worth more, and maybe they're coming in and not enrolling students within our district.
And or one student versus a smaller household that would have 3 to 4.
Or they're sending them to another district.
Yeah. Or both.
So that takes us to the projection for our current budget. The property growth rate, because it was estimated at 8%, and it's actually about 11.65%. We're going to be losing about 1.67 million in property taxes. Also, our student enrollment has also.
Can you repeat that?
On the property value, it was when the template was estimated, it was estimated at an 8% growth rate. And so, just to kind of give you a little bit of history on how these property values, when the timing, when we have information available. So we adopt our budget in June, and we're using preliminary values from the city to establish our taxes. However, the state uses those city ones, makes certain adjustments, and uses the comptroller values. Those comptroller values, preliminary ones, do not come out until January. So we adopt in June, but we don't have information until 7 months later that tells us this is where we're headed. And then the final values for the comptroller don't come out until August. The school year is over. We have a June 30th year end.
So did the rise in the homestead, 100,000, did that hurt us?
It did, in that the information that was available wasn't as, there wasn't history of that on the values. So it made the prediction or the estimation, it skewed it on there for that year.
Because the property values went up as well, correct?
Correct, a significant amount. Also, we have, like I had mentioned before, we did have a loss of some students from what we had budgeted. That also affects our special allotments as well. We had the decrease in the tax collections, and then we also have, we approved some instructional positions at the beginning of the school year. I believe there were some aides, pre-K aides, and special ed aides that were approved. So our operating budget is estimated at about $5.83 million. We do have some items that are rolling over from prior years. TxDOT paid us for this building because they needed a portion of it. And so we needed to, of course, do the reconstruction so that we could keep the building. And that was $1.3 million, and that rolled into this year. We expended it this year, we got the money last year, and that's why it's here. And then we also set aside a technology refresh plan, and that's to replace our one-to-one devices that we bought in FY20 during COVID. We need to continue to replace those. We can't obviously replace them all at once, so we do small increments at a time, but we are putting some monies in reserve, and that's where that $570,000 came from. So in the end of the school year, it'll be at about 7.7. However, the operating budget, which is our day-to-day, is 5.83.
Question, ma'am. Can you give me an example of the special allotments? What is that and what does it go to?
And that's like the CTE, so, like CTE and special ed, we also have state comp ed, which is, we get these allotments based on our students and our demographics, and we're required to spend on some of these 55% of the allotment directly on that program. And that's how we determine how much funding goes to that specific program.
May I ask a question?
Sure. The central office reconstruction, I'm going to assume that was funded through the money we got from the state, correct? From Texas.
Correct.
Or is that money that we received from the state? Was it allocated last year?
Yes, so last year we had anticipated I believe it was a $5.7 million deficit. And so this money came in, absorbed most of that deficit, and that's why we ended up in a positive $1 million last year. However, last year we did project to have a deficit. We predicted to end in a deficit. However, we didn't. We actually ended up with a $1 million surplus. So it's absorbed in the deficit.
Thank you.
No.
So to me, that's really good news because things can happen and change, and we can end up with a positive side like we did last year.
Right.
So the sale price was 6.8 million?
Yes, ma'am.
And so out of that, it went to a deficit of 5.7?
Yes, I believe.
And that's why we have the difference for the reconstruction,
Correct.
correct?
Any other questions?
I have other questions. The technology refresh, I believe last year, was that the monies that we got a grant or something for last year?
Hey, members of the board.
Oh.
So last year was the first year where we actually paid the $750,000.
Okay.
The prior years, we were able to absorb the $750 because the federal government through E-rate was funding any type of machine that was over 3 years old. They would fund for the replacement, so we were able to fund them. You'll see a different figure this time around, and I know we discussed a little bit about changing operating systems for the younger children so that they could save some money and keep that.
Thank you.
So I've done our preliminary projections. This is still subject to change as data becomes available. And we are estimating to be in a $6.4 million deficit for the upcoming school year. This is a work in progress. We're addressing what we can through operations, different avenues, and things that will be discussed a little later as we go through the items that we're going to bring forward to you all to consider. But the one thing that's dire, and I can't stress enough of how important it is our fund balance. Our fund balance is basically our savings account. This is what gets us through any funding gaps. For example, the state does not fund us during the months of July and August. So during that time, we depend on our fund balance to make our payments for payroll or keep the lights on. Those types of things. Also our property taxes. Our property taxes are not collected until we start collections in late November, December, January, February is when we get the bulk of our property taxes. So during that time period, we're dependent on the state funding that's coming in to make payroll and to pay our bills.
So if we had to borrow money, how much money would we borrow?
Payroll alone for 1 month is $5 million. So in order for us to get us through at least through July and August and possibly September, it would be about $15 million.
And we have to pay that within
1 year.
Correct.
Correct.
Interest.
Correct. And so something that's particular for you all to note is that our fund balance, if we continue the way that we are, for the current school year, will be at 41 days. That's about $7.6 million. Our optimal would be about almost $17 million.
We're trying to tell the board and the community, if we do nothing, take our recommendation to do nothing, and take from our savings account, we'll be at 41 days. Next year, telling you, we're spending more than what's coming in. Again, we take from our savings account, would be at 2 days. So the road, when we're saying we're not alone, Socorro, Isleta, El Paso ISD, other districts across the state. And I think that's where Michael and also was telling Socorro, you gotta control your destiny. Because if we don't, and again, I said it in my message last week, it's bankruptcy. And when bankruptcy comes in, you got a conservator that comes in and take over, they remove the board, they remove me. So I think that was the whole gist of this workshop, is to know the dire straits that we're in financially as we tighten our belts and wait for those new schools.
Go ahead, just one more.
So Ms. Poli, the 90 days optimal fund balance that is suggested, 90 days is equivalent to the 16.83 million?
Yes.
Okay, so if we project 41 days, you said that was about 7.6 million?
Yes.
Okay. So if we multiply the 16.83 times 41, right? Is that how you get it?
No, so it's actually based on our expenditures for the year. So we take our expenditures that we're projecting and divide that by 365 and then divide that into our estimated fund balance to get the dates available.
Okay, so on the bottom one, where you have the optimal fund balance of 90 days, 16.73, it's it's less than the 16.83. What is the 2 days equivalent to? Dollar amount.
460,000. That's what we'd be left with.
And you said that payroll is 5 million for 1 month?
The other factor that we might need to look at because of the federal government, there's IDEA, which is supposed to be funded at 40%, which is disabilities. With the Education Act, it's supposed to be 40% right now. I think it might be anywhere from 14 to 18%, so they never fully funded it. And so if they take some of that allotment, those federal funds might have some consequences into our budget as well.
Correct. If we're still required to serve the same amount of students without the additional funding. So the next slide will give you our fund balance outlook, and it gives you where we were since FY17 when our fund balance began to grow. And we did get to optimal in FY19, FY20, but as you can see, it has continued to decrease in the last few years. And of course, the number there of 2 days of fund balance is just not sustainable. We could not survive on 2 days of savings to make our payments for payroll, for taxes, for anything that is required.
So if we borrow 15 million for 3 months and we have to pay it back for 1 year, how do we pay it back?
Yeah, we would have to do some strategic cuts. I mean, it would be very crippling to the district's operations.
I know it sounds nice to just temporarily say, okay, a loan would help us, right? But ultimately, if we can't make up that money now, we're not going to be able to magically make up the money next year. And I just want to clarify, and I think I know why, but I just want to clarify. So the fiscal year 24, it says that we were at 70 days of fund balance. I believe that when we were talking, we were actually under the policy of 60 days initially, but that went back up with the sale of central office. Am I? Policy is 90 days, state is 60 days, correct?
Actually, our policy was updated last year, through a recommendation through TASB for it to be at 90 days. Our policy did have 60 days.
Okay.
However, financial, optimum fund balance is 90 days.
Okay, so we never dropped below 60. For some reason, I thought we had. Okay, that's just my misunderstanding then. Thank you.
Chair?
I don't know what the name is.
Ms. Penny, can you tell me, I understand the fund balance, savings account. What sources, what funding is going into that? Is there specific sources that go in there?
So what happens is fund balance is the result of every year's operations. So every year, we close the fiscal year. We basically close our books on June 30th, and then we see how did we do? How much money came in, how much money went out. If it's positive, it goes into fund balance. If it's negative, it still goes into fund balance, but that means we use some of that money, some of that savings that we had. The first slide I believe the very first slide on our presentation kind of tells you what we put into fund balance over the years. So in 2018 we put in 2.5 million, in 2019 we put in 2 million. So all of that every year, the results of the year is what goes in or comes out of fund balance.
So like if, for instance, I had a budget, for my household. Whatever I did not use for that year, I would put in my savings account, correct?
Correct.
Is that the way to understand it?
Yes.
Now, what expenditures can be used from the fund balance?
So that's actually for our maintenance and operations.
Maintenance and operations.
Right, so that's for our daily operations of the district.
I think we need to clarify that it's mostly for operations. I haven't seen any maintenance, really. So can we say it's mostly for operations?
Out of the M&O, 90-something% of the budget goes to salaries, so very minimal.
Right. And the next slide actually leads up into that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Salaries come from our maintenance and operation budget. What's the percentage we're at right now when it comes to?
For salaries, 84%.
So 84% of our budget has to deal with our actual staff.
So the next slide gives you the breakdown of what our budget is.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Ms. Pulley, and this perhaps a question to Dr. Galaviz. I know we adopted a deficit of $2.75 million, but we have property value accelerated growth even back $1.67 million. What can we do? Have we given this a thought, or what can we do to eliminate giving that money back?
Well, that's our talk next.
Okay.
That's what are we gonna do?
Okay.
Because we just found this 1.6 in January.
Yeah, which you said that it was 8%, and then it was figured out by the state that it was 12%. We'll understand.
Can I add some ideas for that?
Yes.
I think as a board, what we need to do is advocate for increased state funding. Hopefully the basic allotment were to be adjusted to the actual inflationary amount and index. That's the way that we would be able to alleviate as you see the numbers. The other is maximize local revenue sources. We also need to look at efficient use of funds, which I believe the district is looking at. There's a public-private partnerships as well as grants that we need to look at. And we need to make sure that we continue to find ways how we increase enrollment and retention. And then we need to leverage our bond elections to help with that as well. And at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we continue to engage our community through this process and be fully transparent. And that's what we're hoping to do today. And moving forward, that we continue to do that. Go ahead, Ms. Marlon.
Mr. President, I agree that we have to advocate, but in my opinion, it's not in our control. We can talk to them, we can write them, we can, as much as possible, but I think that we really have to be strategic in our own district here, and how is it that we are going to, try to solve this problem. Because it's been proven that we have not gotten the support from the state. And so I agree, we cannot be depending on hope. No.
And
That's out the door.
that's not.
We have to figure out strategic ways on how is it that we can use the monies that we have. I'm not gonna say appropriately, because I do feel that they've been used appropriately, strategically. And I'm gonna go back to saying, you know, needs over wants. No. We have to stay with needs over wants. I'm gonna be honest, you know, the reconstruction of this facility, maybe there were certain things that absolutely had to be done, but in my observations, there are some that could have waited. And so that's what I'm talking about, needs over wants. And so we have to strategically be able to, as a board, decide yes and no. And like Dr. Galavi said, whatever we do, it's going to be hard. But we need to think about, and I agree with what you said earlier, the impact, it has to be less on students, less on campuses, you know, because that is what the education is about. Yes, we need the people that have to do the finance, we need the people that have to do the certifications, whatever, but we really need to be looking at this strategically. Educate, yes, definitely, but let's not count on that.
And I totally agree, and that's been my biggest thing, even at the last session when board decided to increase in regards to, I believe our teachers deserved the raise, but it also added to the situation. And so I think we need to make sure that this doesn't happen here, and that's why I'm hoping that as a board we work with administration, and administration gets back to us on how we could really make sure that we're lessening the impact on the classroom, the campus, and then classroom essentially. So with that,
Mr. Chair, one more comment. One of the things that I've been looking at, and one of the things that I think we as a district need to do, is really do a study of what's going to happen once we build those facilities that we're very happy about, the new schools. How much money are we really looking at down the line as far as revenue for those facilities? Because honestly, I don't think if we have them full, it's going to make a difference, to be honest with you. I think that the simple fact that the teachers deserve more pay, I agree 100%. The insurance keeps going up, and it's not going to stop. All expenses are getting harder, you know, electricity is higher, water is more expensive, everything is more expensive. So we need to start, like Ms. Maldonado was saying, start saving $1 at a time. We just got to start now, guys. The reality of things is, if you got a nice office now, then you should have thought of not getting that nice office, to be honest with you. You should have reconsidered and really and say.
I have to push back on that one.
Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I said, if I know I'm gonna have a deficit in my pocket, and I know money is short in my home, guys, I can't afford going out to eat out anymore. That's just the way it is.
I'm just gonna push back on that one, because again, with the decision to stay here, TxDOT paid the offices that they displaced. So that was big. I know we were thinking of going to Davenport, if Davenport would have closed, even if they did it, we would have went there. But to have our freezers here would have cost millions of dollars. Money that we didn't have. You go up there. And I just don't want people to see our new offices that we're in and thinking, hey, I wanted this new office. I didn't want the new office. If I would do the new deficit, I would have added to the deficit. But we didn't have the money to move. We didn't have the money to so I think. No, go ahead. Say it.
You were asking about the move of the freezers, the warehouse,
and IT systems, and we all looked at that.
About 2.5 million.
At 2.5 million. We didn't have 2.5. We now did a $2.75 million deficit. So, you know, I mean, you can have my office. I don't care where I sit. I can office anywhere. I can work from home. I don't say that. But I just want to make sure it's clear that, you know, again, those offices weren't warranted. They didn't want it. I would have been at Davenport, been fine. I would have been anywhere. If you could afford maintaining those freezers and IT systems. So.
And those offices were meant to house displaced workers by the construction. It was not meant to augment or.
Team, I fully understand that, 100%. But if you tell me, when we moved into this office many years ago, we didn't have a desk, we didn't have a conference table. Well, the superintendent needed a new conference table. I know that for a fact, because I've been in this office. The reality of things is that we created our own furniture back then. Okay? We did. We didn't have to spend the money that we spent buying that furniture, to be honest with you. That is the reality of things. So I'm saying we start saving $1 at a time.
So thank you.
No, and I think this is where we want, I know you're saying, again, it goes back to, none of this is fun, none of this, but if you look at the bulk of what we spend, it's gonna be on payroll. And if you go, and I'm gonna go a little further to this slide, before we go to the next slide, 84% of the personal budget distribution, keep going here. Right there are teachers. 51% of the personnel are teachers. It's 29 million, 30 million, rounded up. Auxiliary clerical, 11 million, 20%. Professional support, 18%, that's 10 million. Ed aid, educational aids, 5%. Campus administration, 4%. District administration, 2%, 1.3, 2.5. So again, it's really gonna, to answer, to say what your statement is, it is gonna have to be very strategic to minimize the less impact on the classroom.
If I may to clarify, so the auxiliary clerical that you're counting in that 88%, so that's salaries, but it's not necessarily teachers, because the auxiliary staff is.
I'm talking teachers.
Yes, so the teachers are 51%. I thought you had said 80 something, sorry.
Back, isn't it? No, go back. Next one. There you go. So again, what's the cost of doing nothing? Do nothing. Our loan. Then we can look at our operating budget. Another slide. Looking at cutting 10%. I know you have the board travel. Trustee Barnes. Next month we're going to be bringing the district travel. Now we're talking about eliminating travel for us. So at all district. I want to know what that savings is, what it is, and but really again, we're looking at another reduction in force. Ms. Carrasco will continue.
Yes, so the question is, what is the next step, given the information that has been presented? And the next step, as Dr. Galaviz has mentioned, is reduction in force. And I'm calling it RIF 2.0, because we did one last year. And of course, we did it in accordance with policy DFFB. And basically on that, it's basically the superintendent making the recommendation to the board and the board approving that due to program changes that we will have to do a reduction in force. I know that last year as we did this reduction in force, and based on policy, the way we looked at the cuts or the reduction that we did, based on this policy, for example, that we're talking about contract staff, we're going to look at their qualifications. That's the first criteria. Second criteria is their performance, and we look at their T-tests and their scores. We also look if there's similar teachers that are basically equal in performance. We look to see if they have extra duties. We look at professional background. And lastly, we look at seniority. So that's how the process takes place. I have provided, I think as we've been talking about the budget, we know that majority of the budget, 85% of it, is personnel, the salaries. And so that's where we're going to have to look at our personnel. And as the graphs that Ms. Dooley presented and that are in this budget presentation, we see the breakdown. And of course, the majority of the budget basically is on teachers. But overall, you have the breakdown on that pie chart. You have the breakdown of the different areas that you can see. I have provided, and I believe Mr. Setos has provided you with the list of options. And just like last year, the administration has been tasked with providing options, being creative. What can we do to remedy this deficit in our budget?
So
And
for
so,
the first one, the central office reorg, we're taking Ms. Dooley's at 470. We're also adding another $1 million, 1.099, 1.1 million. So we're going beyond the recommendations because we know, again, from that pie chart, it's going to take more of an effort. So we're reducing central office at 1.1. The student program assessment, Ms. Carrasco gave you an option there. Again, looking at the Montessori program, that trustee asked me how much is it bringing in, 309,000. But we don't get half for the kids who qualify. Not all the kids qualify. The pre-K3 program elimination, CTE program modification, elementary music design, moving music to 3, 4, and 5, and having K-2 teachers teach it on their own. The library program redesign, again, that was last year. Last year, the nursing, looking at the nursing redesign, campus reorg, and combining CE and Adam. So, I don't know, Ms. Carrasco, you can continue.
yes, and that would be part of the campus reorganization. We also have done our staffing, and we've gone campus by campus. We have identified some excess at the campus level, different campuses. And then, of course, we're bringing forth some of those recommendations that we brought to the board last year, and we didn't move forward on those. But those were my building blocks for this year, to go back and look at what the board, what we can bring back to the board, and then we've added additional options for the board to review.
And I know on the stipends it says nationally board certified, but we're going to reevaluate all stipends. Not just nationally board certified, we're going to own stipends. All stipends, again, because as Ms. Pulley has said, we're in dire straits. We need to make some decisions and not wait for our legislators to get control or do something, because they haven't done anything since 2019. So the time is now.
So overall, these options total approximately 4.6 million. If we do all of this, we would close to 4.6 million. We continue looking at everything. As Dr. Galvez has mentioned, we can continue looking at stipends. There's other areas that we can continue looking at. But I will let you know, there's like cost savings increased class sizes, which we already have. We hold them to what our staffing guidelines are. We're looking at that, making sure that every classroom is at the recommendation that is given in our guidance. Looking at reducing or eliminating professional contract services. We looked at no funding for travel, hiring freeze on non-essential positions. Ms. Pulley will continue looking at department and campus budgets to see if we can cut an additional 10%. Student programming assessment, in other words, looking at possibly maybe conference periods, being a little bit more creative on our master schedules. Those are things that with Dr. Rico's help we can continue looking. And then someone added selling of the central office and the Lone Star building or other existing properties. And I think that's some of the options that are out there. We're also looking at the information that has been provided, as it was mentioned earlier. This is just like a general overview of the thoughts and things that we've been doing up until this point. But of course, on the March 25th board meeting, we will need some definite answers from the board as far as what direction.
Adrian, can you go to the timeline? Yeah, we were talking to our legal counsel, Ms. Carrasco, and why is it important to do it in March, not wait later?
So we have a legal requirement that we have to meet for teacher contracts. So we will be issuing teacher contracts. So in the meantime, by March 25th, if the board should say, and I'm going to give this only as an example, if you say we're closing Davenport, I need to go back and do a thorough review of our teachers, start looking at the criteria according to the policy. We need to say, okay, how many of the students that are moving, for example, to BCE, what teachers are going to be transferred over to BCE, what teachers will not be moving on. And so we need to look at all of that. Not only that, but district-wide, we look at all the programs that we have. And so we need to know by then so that we can notify those employees in time whether they'll be coming back to the district or not. And at the same time, issuing the contracts to those that will be staying.
Mr. Chair? Dr. Galaviz, we have 21 days. Strongly recommend that we start working on that like right away.
And I think that's why, I mean, last year the board did make some of these decisions. So we're just trying to, what is the appetite of the board? So before we go the word disrupt, go and disrupt and call. I mean, there's angst. There's. We want to make sure that the board we're all on the same page. So if we're not on the same page, and it's going to cause a lot of disruption. Nothing. Or doesn't want to do anything. That's fine. It's the board's purview. Your job is to adopt a budget. Serve you, serve at your guidance. But we just want to let you know all the circumstances, the repercussions, the options that are out there.
This is fully one comment. I know we're absorbing 2.75 million debt, and we're at 7.7. So obviously this year, school year, we're in debt $5 million approximately. By the end of May, you figure this amount, 7.7, will still hold, or our debt is going to be higher than this amount?
This is using our full budget, so for the most part, we usually do have some savings. We may have some lapsed salaries, maybe some of the funds may not be completely utilized. For the most part, we'll end up with a little bit additional funds. from what we originally budgeted. So this is, what I'm hoping is the worst case scenario, what you're being presented with right now.
And one last comment, and I'll keep my mouth shut. I think we all need to work together as a team. And I know we're a deficit, we're not the only district that's having these problems. Like, I look in the internet, just about every other district is having the same problem. So let's come together, agree or disagree, let's come together as a whole, like Dr. Galaviz just mentioned, and let's move forward.
I think also we for the retirees, how many retirees did we have?
We did offer a $500 incentive, because it worked very well for us last year. Right now, we've got about 14 that are retiring or separating from the district at the end of the year. And of course, those, some we do have to fill, but for the most part, they will be counted towards savings.
That's more than that.
So, you want to know if we're on board, Dr. Galaviz? I'm not on board for the elementary music elimination. I had asked for a schedule of the music teachers because I know that they're not teaching music every day to the grade levels. And so I wanted to know if they're only doing, let's say, Tuesdays for certain grade levels, second grade, whatever. I wanted a schedule of what are they doing the rest of the time. I don't want to eliminate the music program. You mentioned, I believe, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. To eliminate it, I'm not for that.
I mentioned have K through 2 teachers teach fine arts and have music for 3, 4, and 5.
I'm not for that either, because the teacher already has enough wears a hat of multicolors, like I said before. So I'm not in favor of eliminating the music at elementary. You have to understand that these kids, sometimes this is the motivator. This is a motivator for them, you know. You can't expect them to just be in school, study, especially the upper grades that are star testing. They need a break. They have 15 minutes for recess. I'm expressing my opinion.
It can't be fine arts, it can't be art.
They love music.
I'm just saying, when you're facing a $5.8 million budget, you're going to impact kids. Honestly, you just going to impact kids.
Okay, so let me
we're losing kids already.
Let me make my other point, and I'm going to push back on what you just said. It should not impact kids. So I want to know, why is it that we have a chief human resources director and a staff support or a director of human resources? Do we really need those 2 positions?
I don't have a director.
Well, now you're talking individual, and that has to go in session.
Okay, but we're talking about, so TASB recommended some reductions. I agree with the reductions that she was saying. But my question is, like I said, teachers wear a hat of multicolors. They do so many things already, and you're wanting them now to deliver the fine arts because we're in a deficit. So we need to look, and I agree with Mr. Rodriguez, the least impact on students and programs and teachers at the elementary is where we need to go. That's strategic planning. We're in the education business.
So this is
I am not for the librarians either, because there's a legal policy that says a professional certified librarian has to be running it. You can have someone who is trained. But firsthand, I know what the librarians do. They deliver lessons. They're the teachers that deliver the lessons. The aides are the ones that are helping them check out the books. So I think that we need to look at this really, really close before you decide, oh, let's eliminate music. We need to consider the students. Like I said, this is a motivator, especially for the testing grades. We need to look at what's going to keep them motivated to continue giving us and the teachers the scores that we have. We're the best district, small district. It's been proven. So if we start eliminating some of these programs, and I agree, we need to, with a fine-tooth comb, we need to look at this. But we have to take it from the perspective of the campus and the students.
Ms. Maldonado, if I may, And I take, your points are well taken, and of course, these are only recommendations from administration. Ultimately, the decision will be yours to make.
So my
And-
question is, when you come back with the recommendations in March, is that what you're doing? On March 25th?
I've given you some of the recommendations already, you should have those. If we add anything more to it, or redefine any of these, we will update that list for you. But ultimately, the decisions of where to cut is going to be up to the board. And, you know, your input, given that you've been a teacher, is valuable, because you have the insight, from the experience from being at a campus level. So absolutely, I mean, we would take, your input, but we were tasked, and I know Mr. Rodriguez has always said, you know, administration, you need to bring us options, and that's what we're doing. And like I said, that it's not that this is what I want, it is just an option that is there for cost savings. Now, if the board does not want to go with it, that's fine, and we will work around it.
Thank you, and I will consider those options. And to correct you, I have been a teacher and I am currently still a teacher, so I am speaking from that perspective. My other question to you now is, when teachers were wanting to leave, as long as they gave you 90-day notice, they got some of their local payback. Is that still on the table for them?
That's correct.
And where is that money coming from?
It comes from,
For the most part, it comes from lapsed salaries.
From
Lapsed
salaries. So we have lapsed salaries right now.
yes.
In the amount of?
We would have to do a calculation, so it just varies during the year because vacancies are filled and they may be filled at a higher rate than possibly the previous, or at a lower rate. So that number, we probably won't have, we start doing estimates in February, so we'll bring you projections on salaries at that point.
The 14 retirees that you said that you already know are going to be retiring, is that reflected in the campus reconstruction dollar amount?
No, not yet, because like I said, some of those need to be filled. For example, I have 2 retirees from Northwest Early College, and those require them to be dual credit certified. Those are positions that we will have to fill. So we're looking at, and then some of the other positions that we're looking at in case we need to cut somewhere, then what we did last year is that for the most part, we were able to find jobs within the district for those individuals that were impacted. And so for the most part, I think we did well last year as far as allocating positions that became vacant when people left to employees that were impacted with the reduction in force.
2. There was 2 that weren't placed last year. 2 employees, right, that were not placed?
I would have to go back and look. I know that the ones from central office that were cut, those we were not able to offer anything, but anybody that was a reduction at the campus, clerical or at teachers, we were able to place them in other vacancies that we have with the attrition.
So let me ask you something. If, by chance, if Davenport closes and merges with Bill Childress, obviously you're going to be losing some teachers there because Bill Childress already has some, right? You're going to decide type thing.
Approximately, I believe we lose about 15 teachers.
Okay. So then when Davenport opens in 3 years? 2 years? You're going to have to hire, right? Or you're going to take the ones that are from Bill Childress that can go, plus probably hire.
That's correct, yes. And that's 3 years down the road. Right now, our immediate focus is, of course, on the budget.
No, I understand that. I understand that. I mean, like I said, the decision that we're facing is, I mean, we're messing up with the livelihood of people, and it's really not under our control. I mean, yeah, we can blame Texas all we want. However, we need to really, like I said, I'm going to repeat it, that we have to strategically look at how we're spending the money and how we're gonna allocate and how we're gonna take these options that have been recommended. Again, least impact on students at the campus level is my priority.
I have a question real quick. Mr. Blanco, is there a way to move the March to April and then April to what's the last day that we would, my concern, well, one, I think we still need more time. My thought process is maybe Dr. Galavis comes with some recommendations in March that could be addressed, and then we can look at attrition, but then we move the March to April and then April to what?
So, the reason you have a proposed timeline is you have two competing issues. One, you have teachers that you know you're going to retain who need to be issued contracts. So that's gotta happen. You can't do that, unfortunately, until you've gone through the process of applying the policy, the program changes in the areas of employment that the board will approve, going through the policy and making the decision on who is going to be included in the layoff. Those individuals will not receive contracts. So you have to resolve that
What's the last
first.
day?
You have to give notice of the non-renewal of a contract no less than 10 days before the last day of instruction.
Which would be?
The last day of instruction.
May 26th or
20.
before Memorial?
May 29th.
And that's why I'm saying I would prefer to move March to April. Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, May 30th for teachers.
Pick a day in May. If you're end of May is gonna be your last day of instruction for regular teachers on Northwest College.
That's what I'm saying, we could.
You've got to give that notice, so a lot of things have to happen before that can occur. One, the board has got to approve the areas that are going to be affected. That's up to you. The administration will make the recommendations, y'all pick and choose which areas you agree with to be affected. Once those areas are chosen, the administration then has to go back and apply the policy across the board to every single employee in the affected area. Then once that's done, the administration has to look and see, Ms. Maldonado's point, well, we're gonna need some other teachers for these other programs. These people that are potentially being displaced can be moved into those other positions if they want to, and they apply. You gotta go through that process. Then finally, the group that unfortunately becomes affected and is going to be given notice, everybody has to come to the board. You have to bring that to the board and you have to vote on every single one of them to issue a proposal to non-renew their contract. They then have an option to appeal that decision within 15 days. Waiting until the end of May is a terrible idea. Waiting until the middle of May is a terrible idea. You need to get this done now. The last time you should wait is in March. That's when you should make the decision. And then the administration has April to work through the process, and the notices will go out at the beginning of May.
That's why I would recommend, if it's okay with the board, because as we know, the session is still currently going, and so we would be able to get a better picture as well. And so if we were, my thought process is, talking to Dr. Galavis, is looking at, I don't know if the rest of the board feels this way, but like I said, the classroom should be the last, then the campus, and then central. So I think coming up with a plan and then a little bit more defined in this coming March meeting of how central office would look. Then March we would go to the teacher contracts, and then April we could have a meeting in the first or second week of May if we have to go. But by then, when is CISD? Who would know? It's the last day of the session.
Mr. Rodriguez, one quick comment. Out of respect for all these teachers that are basically we're pushing out by necessity, I think we just need to respect their position, respect them as individuals. So the faster we get to them and let them know that we will no longer need their services, I think we have the right to wait. I don't mind having an emergency meeting, board meeting, between now and the 21st, did we say 25th? I don't mind whatsoever. I think we need to come together, discuss it in detail and give those teachers, you know, our respect and our giving thanks for servicing our kids.
I think last year we did the same, that was in April when we had this, the RIF, right? I would prefer to have the RIF discussion.
If I may, I feel like this is going to require more than one meeting. So I think we need to keep that on the board. Last time it did. And I think the smarter that we are in regard to scheduling a special meeting, maybe in between to discuss what have you guys come up with, what, you know, let's having those individual meetings like Dr. Eloise mentioned to me. I think that's a great idea because we have to have a decision made close to the beginning of April. I don't think you can push it much further than that, Mr. Armando, or Mr. Rodriguez, simply for the respect of not just our teachers, but any staff. They need to have ample time to start looking for jobs.
We're on the same page, I'm saying.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I think if we do, I would say the beginning of April, I want to be very clear about that. I would not push it back past the beginning of April. But on top of that, I don't think just one meeting is ample. I think we need to have more discussion. We need to, if we're really going to be strategic.
It has to be separated from the actual board meeting.
Right.
So my thought process was to have one in March, mid-March, and then we could have one in mid-April, and that could be really decided on the actual board meeting.
So you have a regular meeting at the end of March, I believe on the 25th?
Yes.
Okay. You have, just a reminder, competing interests of spring break.
Yes.
They're coming up. You could try to schedule a meeting between now and March 25th meeting if you want to move things quickly. Have the administration at the next meeting give you the full presentation of the areas. You guys can mull it, talk about it, identify it, move it around, because you're correct, you changed some things last time. And then the March 25th meeting, have the final recommendation and approval from the board. You guys have to approve the areas that are going to be affected. Which groups? And there are some that are proposed by the administration that the board says, no, we're not going to do that. You're going to need to know the budget impact. Because everything you say no to has a cost associated with it. So they've given you a rundown of the maximum amount you can potentially save. Everything you cut is going to shrink that amount, so you'll know where you're at. But I don't think pushing into April, what are you going to push into April?
I think the other option too that we did, I don't know if y'all, whoever was around in the previous, and you could probably, we could make that action, and then if the legislator comes back, then we could fund those positions. And then we could just set aside which those would be. Is that, do you,
I don't understand. What do you mean?
in other words, we had to let go of, remember when we let go of teachers, and we had to make those big budget decisions about 12, 15 years ago? 2011. What we would do is, this is a group of teachers that we would want, because, in other words, this is if the legislator comes in, then we could hire them back.
If they want to come back, sure.
Yeah.
Those people will be in a position where they have to decide whether they're going to go find a job someplace else, unfortunately, or they're willing to wait. I would gather that those people are not willing to go.
Mr. President, can we agree to meet the week of the 17th, that week, sometime when everybody's available? Have like a special meeting so we can further discuss this before the regular meeting?
The March or April?
One of the suggestions that I made to the right is bring, and Leo, let me know if I think I do, well, I know I can do this, is having you all come individually, or two at a time. And that way, because again, if you don't want to do one, well, then the budget goes from 4.6 to the deficit, or, yeah, I mean, so you want to do something, but if you want everybody, that's fine too.
I would like to
We could do.
My suggestion, I'm sorry, was that we're having a regular board meeting on the 25th. Are you presenting anything to us as far as what you've already present it on the options? On the 25th?
I'm presenting those options, and if there's anything between now and then that we come up with that we add, then if I update them, you'll get the updated list. But, you know, the reason you got that, list the way you did is, you know, for you to look at it, review it, and then at that point, on the 25th, there's time then now that if you have questions, you can reach out to us, so that we can answer those questions. But
So my question or my suggestion was if we go ahead and meet on the 25th with it to revise any updates along with what they've already given us, and then possibly meet on April 1st, would April 8th be too late to finalize?
No, legally no, but you're really pushing, because the board still has to have another meeting, you can do it until the end of April.
No, on April 8th would be the final.
For the notice and for the approval, yes, for your end of April meeting, you're gonna have to approve contracts for the people that you are going to keep. So it's a goal, I'm not saying it's legally required, but just operationally, you wanna be in a position where you're gonna tell people who are staying, you're being renewed. And then you're at the same time telling people who you know potentially not staying, you're being non-renewed. That has to happen.
I like, Trustee Ortega's idea about the week before. That way, if the board has an appetite for this list, and if we come up with more, kind of know generally, know it's gonna be, yes, maybe whatever. And then if you sit down there and just talk about this, and then March 25th, we could have a,
It would be 18.
the week of the March 25th, then we could present the reduction in force.
So you're thinking special meeting just to discuss employment areas?
Just this,
and
discuss
recommendations
employment
on the
area.
18th?
On the 18th, and get, and then March, or we could do it the other way. I'm just saying that it's not mix of a regular board meeting.
I'd like
It's
to.
a special board meeting, just sitting down there and saying.
It should be a work session. A work session, yeah, workshop.
So then on the 25th is when we would finalize.
That'd be the most desired result.
Or we could have it on the 8th or 15th.
But they just said, Mr., with all due respect, it's not giving those that are not going to have a contract enough time. We have to be courteous to them, we have to be respectful, like Mr. Martinez said. The 15th is too late.
I'm okay, I'm just throwing the different options that Ms. Barnes had mentioned the first week of April, but.
I was saying that if April 1st, if we do that, the 18th, the 25th, and if there's still changes on, well, the 18th we should know what kind of changes we'd like. But if anything, at the latest would be to finalize it April 1st with another meeting on April 1st.
Do we need to make a motion?
No, this is a presentation.
I have a question. So
Just talking schedule.
the week before that is spring break. So, I mean, I think we also need to be respectful of staff.
No, spring break is the 10th, next week. She's talking about March 8th and next week.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Which is the week after.
So they will have time to prepare anything that needs to be brought forward. That's what I was worried about. So we need to be respectful of
Are they
that.
all, are you all working the rest of this week?
Yeah, we have tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday.
You're ready.
I'm here next week.
I agree. I mean, I don't,
This is, all hands on deck.
Yeah.
I think the 18th or the 19th would be very good.
As long as they have time to prepare, that's really what I wanted to ask.
And then,
I have another idea to consider, and it might be crazy, but it's just something to consider. So, I know we're looking at consolidating possibly Davenport, Childress together. Personally, I hate that idea. I hate the idea of a student having to move for 2 years and then move to a different school 2 years later. Just the inconsistency of that drives me bonkers. But Have we considered, I know we talked about possibly central office in the past when that was up, but what if we were to move all of central office and Lone Star to the empty rooms in Davenport and Childress and sell this property? Is that something that?
That's one of our suggestions.
And keep the Davenport students at Davenport?
Because there's lots of empty rooms at Davenport and Children's. There's quite a few there too. Where is that? I don't know. It's up here with the option.
But now, with that, do we have the funds to move the freezers or whatever it was that you were saying?
Yeah, so that was brought up. That would definitely have to be, I would want to see all those numbers.
We didn't, when the purchase of, the front facing portion of the building was acquired by TxDOT. One, they wouldn't fund that move because you have a place to keep it.
Right.
Two, it was extremely expensive. The IT move alone was 7 figures, so the idea was to use some of the funds you did receive, which was a large amount for a small portion of the room, to reconstruct the offices that you need to keep buildings down. You could price it out, but it would be.
It would probably cost.
It's going to be the same. It's going to be high.
It would be a flush. We would actually have to pay just for the moving of the fridges.
For the central, for the rest of, whoa, sorry.
I mean, we could look at those numbers, but I think those are long-term. I mean, it wouldn't. Yeah. No, but I think all ideas. I guess then we'll go with. Does everybody okay with the March the 18th then? What I would.
Does that give staff enough time to prepare?
I guess from our previous discussion, Stewie presented, I was given homework about programs for 2018. Respectfully, I'd like to push that homework so we can focus on this. All planned from 2018, staff, personnel. We could just focus.
I feel like those numbers could affect.
That's the reason I asked for them, because I wanted to look at the program specifically. If part of the option is some of these programs to eliminate, I wanted to kind of see what we have.
Okay.
But
I'll look at it. Where we're going this way versus attacking the deficit, I'll let you all know.
What I would recommend is maybe this is a discussion we have on March the 18th, and then we could rank where we fell on which one from the first to the last. And then we have administration work that way, and what we end up doing is I would personally put up that it's up to the board to leave Gannett Davenport and Childress as one of the last options as we see the state come in, and we probably do that in April. But if we rank it, and depending what the board feels, we could do that at that March 18th, and then it gives us an ability to say, okay, yeah, we could do it in phases.
So Louise, I don't have the slightest idea how the state operates. Can you tell us when the state will decide on how?
So the last day is June 2nd. June 2nd is the last day. And by then, the House is actually meeting this week, looking at probably House Bill 2 coming out. So we'll see if the House Bill 2 passes. The House Bill, Senate Bill 26, which is the teacher funding bill, has provided, which is now we're over 5,000. So our teachers would get a $5,000 raise. And if they have 3 years of experience or more, and if they have 3 years of experience or less, they would get a $2,500 raise. Now, other districts that have 5,000 or less students would get a $10,000 raise for teachers that have 3 years or more experience, and a $5,000 raise of less than 25. So our teachers would get a $5,000 raise for 3 years or more of experience. That's already been passed out of the Senate. Of course, the House bill will be passing hopefully this week, which is the 220 on the basic allotment, which is allowing 9%. my understanding, that's about 5 billion. There's still a little bit more, 4 billion that I think they're gonna wiggle. So I'm hoping they bring up the base rate allotment to 15%, 18. I would love, and that's a resolution that we'll be asking, is just to please fund the inflationary cost, and it would allow us to break even. But that, we'll get a better understanding, but June 2nd is the last, and I don't think you're gonna want a special session. So that's why I think March 18th, we'll get a better understanding, and even April, but we could create phases and figure out, depending on the priorities of the administration, the recommendations of the board, and then the priorities of the board, because that's what's gonna happen.
Mr. Chair, one more comment on my end. This is for Dr. Galaviz and Ms. Pulley. Given the fact that legislature is gonna push for the vouchers, just keep that in mind, because we might end up losing more than the kids that we're contemplating at this point. And in my opinion, we're gonna lose quite a few more. And so let's do a survey if we can, so that we can take that into account. Because I can tell you, I'm sure we're gonna lose quite a few more.
So, but going back to your reduction in force, you have Montessori program elimination, pre-K3 elimination. What's the enrollment in pre-K3? So pre-K3 enrollment at CES is 15. And so I think they only right now have a small waiting list for next year, but that's what they have for CE. And so pre-K3 is only on CE? Yes. So Montessori at DDE, they can start at 3 years old, and also Montessori at GES, they can start at 3 years old as well. DDE Montessori has 19, Montessori GES has 26, and then we have waiting list numbers for DDE for next year are 19 on the waiting list, for GES 102 on the waiting list, and then CES, or actually it's 4 on the waiting list for CE as of right now.
How many qualify?
Pardon?
How many qualify?
How many qualify? For Montessori DDE, 17 students qualified. Montessori GES, 11 qualified. Pre-K3 CES, 12 qualified. Out of the 15, out of the numbers you can get? Yes.
So qualified means the 6,160, you get half of that.
What about the kids who don't qualify?
You get 0.
Not even, nothing for ADA?
We get nothing, but if they stay with us in the district over time, we do, you know, it helps us to increase our numbers, and then if they stay with us. Yes.
No.
Not at any grade level. Not at any grade level can you guarantee, but when you expand programs and opportunities, it's one way to attract students. And it did. Yeah.
But again, it's the ones that don't qualify, we get no money. But do qualify, we get half. So one of the other, again, with Dr. Adriano's team is looking at, last 2 months ago, they'll approve a MOU to buy WCA.
Yes, sir.
We already approved it.
Yeah, but they already approved it, so we're looking at 90,000. And just with that one contract, working with other child cares.
And where would those funds go to?
They go to our attorney.
Operation? General?
Our attorney.
90,000?
Okay.
I don't think so. Would they go to operations?
Goes to operation.
Okay. The other one is CTE program. It just says CTE program modifications, but I'd like to know what kind of modifications are we talking about?
So right there, we're looking at, have a 3 people here at central office. Looking at removing one of the CTE personnel and putting them at the high school. CTE program is. Since one of the ideas, I think it's still on the table, is letting campuses do their travel budget. that do the travel. And then, so majority of our travel at the high school is athletics and CDE. So allowing that, that person that was at central office, help the campus in the counseling center to help with those travel, field trips.
So you have 2 staff members and, that are exempt at Central. It's just a reduction here type thing, but you're reshuffling them basically to the high school.
Yes.
Both of them. Okay.
The other thing that I wanted, I mean, we have to be creative, right? Sorry.
And also the music design, option 1. What is option 1?
That is what I said, is taking three teachers at the elementary and having them work between the 2 schools. So BCE, Davenport, Reyes CE, Garcia, Damian, so letting them share CE.
Not CE?
Or CE and Reyes.
So all the elementaries?
Yeah.
3 teachers would.
There's 2 options on that, and we went ahead and gave you the option of closing out the music program at elementaries, and then you have the sharing. So there's those 2
So option 1 is the sharing. Okay.
Which one is calculated in the total?
The one that's calculated in the total is the one with the 3 staff members.
Okay, so it's option 1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Was that it?
Yes, thank you.
In regards to, let's say, pre-K funding, we know that the research shows if a kid comes to us in pre-K, more than likely they're gonna continue to go into, and stay and go into elementary, and then hopefully what we were losing them was at middle school, but those are unintended consequences, so we have to be careful on what we prioritize, and that's the classroom first. So I think when you all come back to us in the 18 classroom stuff should be at the end, campus, and then central. In regards to is there any other questions, Wally? I guess then we would have to wait the March 18th is what we're looking at.
I would ask, that give staff enough time?
Yes, they said it.
18th?
I would ask that, for the preparation of the 18th, that we have more specificity to these things. So I know a lot of it was mentioned tonight, in the questions that we asked, but like even the campus reorganization and restructuring, what does that mean? What does that look like? So I love that we have numbers and it's broken down by program, but if not by, I'm not asking for positions, but just so that it's more specific, so that, yeah, details, so that we know specifically what programs we're looking at or how it's going to affect them.
And with that in mind, Mr. Sheriff, on the Lone Star building closure, is that just closing the building and leaving it vacant?
We had 2 options last year. One is leaving it vacant because I think it costs like $100,000 just in operational.
Correct, yeah, and then if you put them in a place where there is already a cleaning crew, a custodial crew, you would eliminate the need for duplication. And also just operating that a building gets more expensive due to.
So the 150 is leaving it vacant?
Correct.
Or we could just sell it?
That would be another option that we can also bring to the table.
But that's not included.
And that would probably take them a minute to do it.
I think it's on the cost savings. It's on the,
The south, the sale?
yes, it says sell central office and Lone Star building or other existing properties.
Oh, yeah, but the dollar amount, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. The 150 for the Lone Star is on my sheet, on my deduction.
Yes, but I was asking if it's leaving the building vacant, the 150. Thank you, Dr. Rico.
Next slide, please.
The 18th, right?
And then the 18th, everybody, you know, Adrian will check y'all tomorrow, 6 o'clock. And I'll just talk about this. Here's one of the, ask was for travel. So we just wanted to put that out there. Again, next March, we're gonna put our travel. But again, the immediate ask was board travel. There it is. And then some other money that we had to take out of the 30,000 for renewal, board member miscellaneous expenses, TASB subscription, Region 19 continuing ed, and Lone Star governance training. So your total board travel budget is $599.
Mr. Chair? So this is one place where we, because we are in a deficit, we eliminate the board travel. Out of this, we would still have to do the Lone Star governance training. We would still have to fund that.
Well, we still have,
What would still have to be
TASB
there
subscription, board book renewal, Region 19 continuing ed, and Lone Star governance.
Those, that dollar amount would have to continue.
If the board wishes to continue with Lone Star governance.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd like to, because again, we are in a deficit. I would like to see about, just like we put a freeze on hiring, that maybe we forego the board travel for this coming year at least.
Yes.
So if we could have an option, that included in the options, if that's what you're doing. Thank you.
And maybe even look into administration.
Well, and I did request that, yeah, Dr. Elvis is getting that ready for us.
Right, but I mean
To freeze.
The freeze?
Yeah.
Yes. What?
And yeah, just what I guess the dollar amount would be for savings on that. And then we can make sure we stick to it. We said we were gonna freeze travel last time too.
Any other questions? No, that will take us to the next item.
Item 3C, discussion and possible action to approve a resolution opposing school vouchers and advocating increased funding for public education. Senator Armando Rodriguez and Gustavo Rodriguez.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution as presented?
Mr. Chair.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second.
Mr. President, who motion?
Ms. Zuniga?
And second Ms. Maldonado?
Correct.
Ms. Barnes?
My vote is no, and I have a comment for the record. The state does need to fund our public schools, and I just can't support this simply because I do support school choice and parents having the right to choose what's best for their children.
Please note for the minutes, Ms. Barnes did, Trustee Barnes did say for the record. I'll make sure it's noted.
Thank you.
So, if you'll pull the board, Adrian? Because that was a vote, so let's just pull the board.
Ms. Maldonado?
Yes.
Ms. Ortega?
For the record, I too am all for public school funding, but I'm also for allowing parents to choose for school vouchers. So, a no for me.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
And I would like to.
You forgot Mr. Martinez.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez.
Yes, and for the record, I think if we're gonna represent this school district, we need to represent it 100%. This is not a voucher program. If you really wanna represent a voucher program, you need to go to a private school. 100%. Represent the private school.
Ditto.
And, I mean, the issue here, I'll just read the resolution, but the facts are the facts that it's gonna actually hurt the district, or does somebody wanna read it?
I don't think we need to read it, we all have it in front of us.
No, that's fine. What we can do is, make sure the signatures and then send it to our legislative delegation and then vote the Senate and the House Act.
Will do.
I'll take this to next item.
Item number 4, Lone Star Governance. 4A, discussion and possible action to approve Lone Star Governance Resolution. Presenter, Dr. Pedro Morales.
So, real quick, in communication with Dr. Galvez, our thought process was on an evaluation process. We could probably have that discussion later, as well as a board self-evaluation. But the goal is, if you all are okay with approving this resolution, which is to confirm the current goals, so that way, as we know, LSU, then we could approve the goals. The next step is to look at the board self-evaluation and the superintendent's evaluation, and then we'll come back and hopefully start going to the community to show our goals either in May or in August. But if nobody wants to change or they're okay, then I would like a motion to approve the resolution.
So you got me confused. You're wanting us to right now approve the resolution, which is basically stating the goals?
Correct.
The change to the updates in the goals?
Correct.
And then come back to the evaluations at a later date?
Yes. Will that work?
Works for me.
Okay. So if I could get a motion to approve the resolution.
I so move.
I have a motion by Ms. Warren, so I have a second.
Second.
I have, actually, Zuniga, I'll take, a motion by, a second by Ms. Zuniga. No, we could, yeah. Okay, Adrian, will you pull the board?
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Barnes, second by Ms. Zuniga. Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Maldonado?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortega?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'll take this to next item.
Item 4B, discussion regarding leadership definitions. Presenters Dr. Pedro Kearney and Dr. Arias.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. We know the hour is far spent. We had a full presentation for you. I promise it was amazing. But in the interest of time, I just want to be brief. Through the Holdsworth Center, we had the opportunity, Dr. Galaviz, Dr. Ariana, and myself, to work on 3 work streams: vacancy planning, principal pipeline, and leadership definition. You all received these shirts last month during board appreciation. It's just representative of what we've come up with as a district for our leadership definition. And as leaders in Kansas here, we connect, we invest, we strategize, and deliver. You're going to be hearing more about this. We use this every time we do leadership with our principals. We always align all of our work to this leadership definition. And again, we have more work streams that we learned through Holdsworth, but we wanted to at least orient you to that. And we did provide you with a copy of the presentation so you could read through it. But I'm going to see if Dr. Armand wants to add anything.
I think the intent of the Holdsworth, Charles Scott, who owns the HEB, was really dedicating a beautiful space so that the idea of public education matters. And so that was the focus. It's about growing our own leaders within the district, having a pipeline of ready leaders on a bench so that when there's a vacancy,
they're ready to fill that vacancy within the district. So that was the goal. That's what Dr. Kearney is and the team, we have a task force of really working to ensure that we prepare for any aspiring leaders throughout the district.
And trustees, this was an 18-month process that we just finished. Again, as you see pictures from the excellent presentation.
I can do it.
So, but there's pictures from a glamorous teachers, campus, just to say what is being a leader here at Avila. And so this year is just about, we want people to start remembering that you think of Canopio and you're going to be part of our staff, part of our team, that we're here to connect, we're here to invest, we're here to strategize, and more importantly, we're here to deliver for our community. So we just want to, you got the t-shirt, I know in January, just want to let you know why, how it came about, and you'll be seeing it more, because we're about to make it good more. And then when you go through the Lone Star governance, this will also be part of your speech. You're a board member who connects, you're a board member who invests, you're a board member who strategizes, you're a board member who delivers for the sake of all our kids. So it goes like, why did the board bring a ladder to the board meeting? Because they're trying to get to higher education. But I'm both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take us to the next item.
Item 4C, discussion and possible action to approve the superintendent's evaluation framework for school year 2025-2026.
And this is the part we'll be tabling, if that's okay. I could either table it on the 20th. We could either do it on the 18th or we could put it on the 25th. Okay. 25th. And that will take us to the next item.
Item 5, Board of Trustees business. 5A, discussion and possible action to approve participation in Public Utility Commissions of Texas, UC, proceeding docket number 57568 / SOAH docket number 473-25 11219, application of El Paso Electric Company to change rates subject to at least 50% of the prior rate 41 number of participants by percentage of usage. Also interviewing and subject to approval at a future meeting of a definitive interlocal agreement and engagement with special counsel. Presenter Steve Blanco.
Thank you, Mr. Settles. That's not. So I don't know if all the new board members are familiar with the rate 41 contest and hearings with local entities and El Paso Electric. So I'll give you a brief rundown of it. Local government entities, school districts, community college have in the past banded together to intervene in the El Paso Electric Company's rate cases over the last 10 years. I think of going back. Happen every so often, every other year. In the past, the local public entities, local government entities have joined to intervene in the electric case. The electric company's cases has the group called Rate 41. It's a special rate that was carved out for public entities because of the way that you use electricity. You close at certain times, you're off for certain breaks, and you receive electric utility rate charges at a reduced rate. And it's always been recognized by El Paso Electric and by the state. So the discounted rate that you enjoy has generally been under review and requests from the electric company to change that. Right now, El Paso Electric's not proposing to eliminate the category. It gives you savings on electricity you would otherwise pay as a commercial user, but they've always tried to set up the rate cases so that the next case it can be eliminated and theoretically be brought up to the true cost of use and service. So this goes back to 2015, 2017, 2019, 2021 was the last one, and there was a settlement agreement reached by El Paso Electric and the intervening groups that comprised Rate 41 to keep some savings. So it's coming up again. El Paso Electric is having another rate case. They're asking to revise the Rate 41 group, and again, the group led by, right now it is the Saleta School District, El Paso School District, Anthony, the county, and Region 19 have all indicated that they're going to join the group and band together again. The reason that's done is because it reduces the cost. We don't handle it. A special utility district law firm out of Austin, Hush Blackwell, has handled it in the past. They charge a rate based on your allocated percentage usage. So KUT being a smaller school district, your percentage of the fee is allocated to you for the legal fees is smaller than the larger districts. It's a rather complicated amount, but the last time we checked, the total amount was $56,400 in payments by KUT, compared to El Paso Community College was $171,000, the county was $197,000, Socorro paid $469,000, Saleta $326,000. So questions have been asked, and since we're counsel for the school district, the group, Ceci Collins, General Counsel for El Paso Independent School District, kind of puts everybody together, and we appreciate the work she does to do that. And they're asking us to take it to our boards and ask, are you interested in joining the coalition to again intervene in the El Paso Electric Company rate case? They're asking that you do so. Frankly, the more you have the numbers of entities that are joining, the more attention that it gets, and the more weight you have with the hearing and with the electric company to try to maintain that rate. It would be beneficial for as long as you can maintain it. So it results in savings overall. We're, I guess, taking the position that it's beneficial to the district, and we recommend that you do it, but there's a cost associated with it. So I don't know if you have any questions.
I have a question. If we don't join, can we still get the discount if they win?
Yes. You're still classified as a rate 41 user, but that the concern is that enough entities won't, and then it becomes apparent that it's not important. And then it makes it easier for the electric company to say, well, see, this historic rate is no longer serving a purpose. The entities that even enjoy it aren't concerned about fighting for it. So go ahead and bring up to true cost of service.
Just a comment, I just think it's really sad that you gotta spend money to save money.
Do we know what our savings have been in the past by being part of it?
Total now, let me see. I don't have the specific dollar amount, but let's see. No, I don't have it handy. I know there's a savings, and I know it exceeds the amount that you pay. And that's generally been true for all of the entities.
So, and at the rate increase, that's another increase in our budget with electrical.
Well, either way, it's gonna be an increase, correct? Because we did not account for the 56,000 to enter in.
But that's not budgeted at all. The rate 41 legal fees are not budgeted. No, they're not budgeted.
So regardless, it's gonna be an increase to what we're looking at. So that's my concern. I mean, 56,000, basically one position.
Oh, when you look at the savings, it might be millions.
And it's fully, I know we're looking at millions.
It's not tens of thousands in savings. It's not millions.
Hundreds of thousands.
And tens of thousands. You're saving money, but you're not saving $1 million on your electricity usage.
So like tens of thousands over how many years?
Annually.
Annually.
And not only annually, you're looking at inflationary costs when the electric rates high.
So the cost is what we're paying right now, the 5640, is what you said? What's the cost?
Last time, it was at $56,400. I can't say that that is the amount that you'll pay this time. It could be higher, it could be less. It's based on an allocation of distributed use. So your kilowatt usage as a school district compared to all the others is then divided out to determine how much you pay for the legal fees for the rate case. So I can tell you that the monthly increase to some has ranged from $16,000 monthly to over $20,000 monthly, but we don't have it broken out by district. We can, if you want to know that number before you vote on it, we can wait and I can bring it back to you since we're going to have another meeting, because I think it's, given the budget situation, it's probably important for you guys to have that.
Thank you.
Okay. So just, let's not take any action. I'll report to them that we need the actual figure.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That will take us to the next item.
Item number 6, consent agenda voting.
I have a motion to approve consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I have a question on the final payment for central office.
Would you like that for?
No, just a quick explanation on change order number 1. What exactly is that change order? And I don't think it was clear to me.
I was gonna, so in regards to, I know there's new board members, the best thing to do is to contact the superintendent. I know there was other people that asked questions. Let's see if there's any items that want to be pulled first. Part of the constraints would be that you would call the superintendent the day before. But is there any items that want to be pulled?
So I don't want to pull an item. I believe Dr. Galvez was going to mention something in regard to policy that I was going to ask about. But all my questions were answered with the questions that I had.
So since this is your first, I'll let it slip. But what we're trying to do is make sure that those questions are funneled through administration and getting enough time, and then provide that to the board. But go ahead.
Mr. Chair, and that's correct. I think Mr. Rico did provide me enough information that I didn't feel comfortable. I would like to pull this item. However, this is the final payment is to our CM at risk grant, and that's in the amount of how much? $100 and some thousand dollars out there?
No,
it's $56,000 is the final one.
correct. It's going to be, minus that, not what it used to be. $56,950.
Yeah, I'd like to pull this from the agenda. And on March the 18th, can we have this as part of the
We could pull it and then you could ask those questions and then we could vote on it.
Are we okay if we hold till March 18th?
Let's pull the item if he's gonna pull and let's ask those questions in public.
No, what I'm saying is that Trustee Martinez is gonna pull it on March 18th.
That's
This
not,
will hold payment.
that's not the way it works. He would pull the item, we would have that discussion, and if he wants to, if the board wants to table it, they would have to vote on table.
No, he requested it.
No,
Ultimately,
but
March 18th.
we would pull the item.
So to pull it out today, and then discuss it,
We would have to discuss
bring it on the 18th?
We would have to discuss it.
Okay.
By pulling it, then you're stopping payment, basically, correct? Right? So can it be discussed? He pulled
Yes.
it, can it be discussed right now?
Yes,
Thank
sorry.
you.
I'm correct, right, legal?
Yes.
Okay. So that item is gonna be pulled. Is there any other items that are gonna be pulled?
No, that's the only one.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve consent agenda except for that one item?
I make a motion to consent the agenda as is, with the exception of A5.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Can you pull the board, Ingrid?
Ms. Vargas?
Yes.
Ms. Maldonado.
Yes.
Mr. Martinez.
Yes.
Mrs. Ortega.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 685, final payment authorization for central office remediation location project as needed for Texas right of way approval under CMAR 2024/05.
Go ahead with your questions, Mr.
Dr. Rico, real quick, I know there's 2 change orders, and the first change order has to deal with some revisions you have to make to the construction documents as a directive to the architect to do what?
So I have them listed, if you want me to list.
Yes, please, sir, or just carefully, I mean,
So there had to add a new concrete sidewalk as per a revision on the scope of work, concrete stairs, those were to meet ADA compliance and accessibility. There's also an existing door from the corridor that needed to be removed and infilled with a 1-hour fire rated gypsum wall. Also an existing door from the corridor to the dining room, that's referring to this area, had to be replaced. A door to the outside was added to the superintendent's office. Sink was added to the conference room. The room 113 was changed to serve as a conference room instead of an office. And that was because the individual occupying that office was no longer there. Existing water heater located at room 118, so that was in the kitchen, had to be removed. Owner requested no partitions be built in storage room 118, and metal edging and chat ground cover to be installed in the footprint of the demolished portion of the building.
the issue that I have on this, Dr. Rico, is ADA compliance. As a professional, that's why we hire professionals, to give us a full set of construction documents that are fully vetted through the inspection system. One of them is the American with Disabilities Act. The other one having to do with fire-rated doors, fire egress. I understand if the superintendent needed a door to his office to come out of his office. I understand that. But in addition to that, I mean, placing gravel or rock in the front of the building, having it curved, wasn't that part of the design from the get-go?
No, and that was the issue so what happened too, and for the information of the board as well, TxDOT was supposed to start construction in July of this year. So they hurried the process and said we had to sign certain documents and sign over the lease and start curing the building. They extended that till the end of October, saying, hey, that's as long as you're gonna have, because we're gonna start putting that road. However, TxDOT decided around late September, early October that they weren't ready to start. So the hurry that was originally placed on you guys to accept those contracts wasn't really there. And now we had a portion of the building that was dilapidated and had to be covered. Because we were supposed to be expecting asphalt work right in front, or construction to at least begin in July, and according to the story, they were going to postpone it a bit so that we could get situated. But as you can see, construction has not even remotely begun.
I was under the impression, and I met with TxDOT several times, that construction was going to start November 2024. They're giving me some other date, so obviously we had our information. I talked directly to the district engineer. So,
and that was the first date, the second date. They told us 1st July, and then we said, well, we need an extension because we brought it to you guys in June, and it was like, we gotta hurry this. So the first change from the July came, and it was first pushed to November. The second time they have pushed that is to July of next year, or this year,
July 2025. I just see it very difficult to approve a change order of this amount, okay, given the fact that it's such a small building. It's just demolish part of the building, close it. Nothing fancy about the wall, it's a plain wall. It's nothing magical. Even the light reflecting our new logo is not there. You have it from the top, the logo doesn't look good at night. Okay, so I just don't see it. I mean, where did we go wrong? I mean, what can we do to improve this? We give architects an opportunity to really not do their homework, due diligence, they're gonna take advantage of this.
And with all due respect, I think that's what happened, Mr. Martinez. We told the architect we need construction documents immediately. We also reached out to our legal counsel to see how quick we could hurry the process, because we were under the impression that if we didn't do it ourselves, and I guess the way we pictured it was that there was gonna be a record outside of our building knocking it down if we didn't get to complete by their deadlines.
So the amount of this change order number one is for what amount?
That is $95,655.
And out of this 95,000, you say that what percent is really something, additional work that we requested?
All of it had to be redone.
What requested is one thing. I think like the door for the superintendent, I understand that. I think it needs is
Getaway.
It's
Oh,
getaway.
yes, I understand what you're asking.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking. What is the difference here?
So really, it's just going to be the door. It's going to be the sink on this change order, and the reason for those as well is during acquisition by TechStop, we were told there was two buckets of money: relocation and acquisition. So when they came in, they took pictures and said, "Look, relocating staff members." We showed them the millwork that was there before. We showed the doors that were there before, the restrooms that were there before, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's relocation for operation to occur." Which continues to hold true. The only thing is that the proceeds, the $6.8 million, would have to be spent in construction, and then afterwards we would have to submit to TxDOT. Let's say we would have spent $7.8 million. They would have said, okay, the $1 million can qualify for relocation, so we would then have to prove structures were there and needed for operations to continue, and then they would reimburse it. The caveat that we did not understand at the time was that the entire proceeds had to be spent. We did get all the guidelines and regulations and council checked. I think the only thing that we were unaware of was the fact that they would not allow us to file for reimbursement of relocation costs until all the 6.8 were spent.
Yeah, to me that relocation is, TxDOT gave you an amount and basically that's it. I don't see it, but I just disagree with this large amount. Big change of, I think that's unprofessional to hold them responsible to really be able to give us a good service. And I think this is an architect that we've used in the past.
And we are evaluating for future reference different engagements and different things that we do.
So I'm sorry, I don't know much about architects, construction and all this, but I do, what does stand out, what Mr. Martinez said, is if we're hiring an architect, I would think that they would be very well informed about, especially, your ADA compliance. To have to make a changeover for that, it falls on the architect. They need to know. They're in the business. They need to know. So I think I agree with Mr. Martinez as far as evaluating this architect, because that's a cost that, hey, they should have paid for. If I hire someone to build my house and they didn't do, and I have been through that part, they want, the stairs. No, sir, that's not what I told you I wanted. It's in the plans. And so he had to eat it. But, like I said, we're hiring these architects who are not newbies, and so they have to be held accountable.
And it is our plan to bring further resolution on that contractual agreement to the board.
And we're using one of them for our new buildings, are we not? It's Baines, right?
The contractor or the architect?
Who's the one that did this? Advocate? So we're using them, right? Okay, but they're the ones that did this part? Yes, sir.
Sure, and
if not, we're gonna keep an eye on it.
Proceedings should be keeping an eye out, right?
That's correct.
So we hired them.
This question is Presidio managing this project?
Not this one. So
this one.
This one was so quick, and the turnaround was so quick that Presidio was not even on board. And again, it was partially also on our mistake of pushing, hey, we need this in 30 days, we need the quick turnaround time, Because we were told of a timeline that was not realistic, as we further can see.
If I may, I did ask an additional question to Dr. Rico in regard to the change orders because that was new information to me. So I had asked him, why did these not require board approval, or why were we not made aware of them, basically. He did inform me of CD policy for the percentage, so I appreciated that clarification. But because of the fiscal situation that we are in, I really feel like the board needs to be aware of changes that are happening to our budget after we've approved something. So I'm not sure how we can do that, since the policy states otherwise, but the fact that these are large dollar amounts that really increase the amount that we initially approved, I really feel like it should have been something that we should have been made aware of prior. So I'm not sure how we can change that.
Does it have to be, we have to update the policy? Because I agree with you. I think any change orders, expenditures to be, 100,000 to me is too much. Needs to be lowered. So I think we need to update the policy. Well,
in policy, or they can update us, and then we could ask it. In other words, we could have them come up with a process to put it in the Friday packet. Because the issue comes about if, let's say, we are going through construction and something does happen, and we have to wait a whole month for the board meeting to actually address the issue, then it could delay the project.
well, then we may have a special board meeting to cover that, because we're talking a lot of money here. And
for
I don't
reference,
think
it's,
that time, it needs to be taken care of. If they want to continue with construction, call a special board meeting, bring it up to us so that we're made aware.
Quite frankly, hopefully that'll keep them from trying to push change orders. But to also clarify, it does not fall under, because that was my initial question, was whether or not it was under the $100,000 allotment that we had for the superintendent. But technically, this is under the change orders policy, which, am I correct, CISD?
CV legal, sorry.
CV legal. So this one is actually a contract with an original contract price of $1 million or more may not be increased by more than 25%. If a change order for a contract with an original contract price of less than $1 million increases the contract amount to more than $1 million, then that basically has to be brought before the board. So because they were under 25% of the total price, it did not have to be brought to us. That's legal, yes. So, and that's what I'm saying. I understand that this is legal policy, it was all done correctly. My question is, because of the situation that we're in, how can we really be brought into the budget discussions and those different things are happening so that we know these changes are happening or coming up? So.
Sir, but now that we're on the subject, I would also like to visit the $100,000 allotment that was awarded to the superintendent.
We're actually not here out of government. We're actually discussing this and not policy. So what I would recommend, if we're okay, is there a motion to approve this item?
I'd like to make a motion to approve change order.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Adrian, can you pull the board?
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Maldonado?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mrs. Ortega?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Zuniga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I just wanted to let the board know, for the new board members, we did a policy diet last year where we had someone from CISD come down and go through all our policies and old policies and making sure they're up to date. We did promise the board at that time a workshop, a policy workshop, so you can go in and looking at the superintendent, which ones looking at, and I know Ms. Barnes had 4 or 5 policies she really wanted to deep into, get more of an understanding how we're doing it. So along with the budget workshop, I would encourage the board to do a policy workshop.
Was that the same day?
No, not on the same day, like a different day, just to talk policy.
What I would recommend, because there's how many thousands of policies, what's the total amount of policies?
A lot.
I think if any board member wants to look at policies, bring those policies that you want to look at and we'll have them specifically instead of looking at an overall.
But are we gonna have a date to have those discussions? That's what we
Yeah,
originally said we were gonna do.
We'll look at the calendar and then we'll draw some dates for the board, so we can just specifically sit down there and talk about it.
Mr. Galavis, I think we need to submit to you a list of policies to look at. Recommend that we set up a deadline date so that we recommend by the end of this month.
Actually, if you're, the issue here is, I mean, you could pick and choose which policy, but if you wanna do your homework, this is 1,000 policies, so do it and look at every policy.
I agree.
It should take like, I would say May, June. And that actually allows, the focus right now is a budget, and for us to push staff, I think what we need to do is focus on the budget, and then we can have these conversations in the summer, and that's perfect time when everybody's on downtime.
And I agree with that, sir.
Excuse me.
And then that's why I
May
wanted
have the
to
floor? I agree with you, Mr. Rodriguez. The one thing is that I want us to have those policies in line so that we can identify them, discuss them, and not bring them on the 11th hour or while we're discussing other policies. Just focus primarily on the policies that affect us or that we have sufficient.
How about, if anybody has any policies you wanna look at, June is the deadline, and then those will be given to the board, and then we have a month or two depending to give the board sufficient time to look at those policies, and then we could discuss it.
I'm sorry. Is there a time frame to look at the policies?
No, you could look at them at any
Is there a
time.
time frame to, if we make changes, to approve it?
No, there's no time frame. What we're trying to do is focus on.
I know what we're trying to do. Budget is the first thing. That's number one. But, as far as the policy, we're not asking that we revise them or we look at them, next month. So, but you're saying you're giving us a deadline as
No,
to
well,
June.
you gotta ask for a deadline. What we're saying is, if anybody wants to revisit a policy, then you put those, so that way we can have that discussion. But we give that a month or two, so that way board members are able to research that policy and be prepared when we have that policy.
So this can be very well after the budget is set.
Right. And I don't mind whether it's the 31st of this month or next month, as long as we have a deadline so that you can be prepared to, to basically discuss these policies. So those are critical.
Well, it won't be the 31st of this month because we have the 18th, the 25th that we have to look at budget. And then, I would say probably not even in the end of April. So that's why maybe.
Ms. Maldonado, I withdraw my comment.
Thank you.
So, what I'm hearing.
You'll get with your staff and then give us when that timeline is.
We're gonna look at the policies that we questioned.
Yes.
That we would like, and we would submit them to you.
By June, or May, or March, or.
Well, get with your staff.
May?
Get with your staff and then, I would say
May?
June.
May, June.
Because the legislative session, what if we have to reconvene in May? I would say June. Get with your staff and.
Yeah, we'll find something.
And I just wanted to make the comment that there's a lot of policies that do affect the budget, and I think that's why we need to look at them and see what we need right now that we are in a shortfall.
But and the question is, I agree, there's policies that do, but the issue here is what we need to focus on is balancing our budget, and at the end of the day, when we've gone through Lone Star governances, we're not here to manage the district. And so, you could really micromanage the district by creating policies, and if that's what the intent is, then it could have hindering consequences to the district. But that's why it's important for us to look at it, give the time, and then we'll have that conversation. But let's focus on it.
Can I make a comment? Yes. So even though there might be policies that will be hindering the budget, Mr. Tela, if you really think about it, reality is if you want to make a change to a policy, it's not going to be done overnight. We really need to take care of the budget first and then look at the policies. So even if we don't agree on a certain policy, it's too late. The policy's there.
But it can be changed.
After we do what we have to do now.
Okay. That will take us to the next item.
Item 7, executive session. To consult with attorney under sections 551.071 and 551.072 of the Texas Government Code. A certified agenda for recording of closed meeting is confidential and is not available to the public except by court order. A person who knowingly and without lawful authority makes a certified agenda or recording public commits a Class B misdemeanor. Any exceptions will be communicated in accordance with applicable policies and regulations. Item 7A, discussion with legal counsel regarding potential amendment to real estate contract and transaction for real property described as a tract of land out of Lot 1, Block 48, Enchanted Hills, Unit 6, and a portion of the tract 4B, 4B1, 5A, 5B, and C. Laura E. Mendy Survey 2237 to be platted as Enchanted Hills Unit 7, presenter Steve Blanco. Time is 8:51 p.m.
If anybody wants to take a 5-minute break. Yeah, before we're done.